You didn't find this message by accident. No, this moment, this very breath, is sacred. You've been led here by divine orchestration because your soul was ready. You've been seeking answers, yearning to understand why your journey feels different. Why does your presence stir discomfort? Why does the noise of crowds weigh on your chest like a storm cloud? This message will reveal a truth your spirit has always known, but perhaps never fully heard. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are a chosen one, marked by divine hands, set apart with purpose. And today, you will come to understand why your soul cannot thrive in the midst of many, and why that truth is not your weakness, but your greatest protection. Before beginning the video, let's subscribe, like this video, and stay with me until the end of this message, and you will understand why you were led here. This is your moment. From the moment you took your first breath, something about you was different. While others seemed to move effortlessly within the flow of the world, you often found yourself on the edges, watching, sensing, knowing. You tried to follow the rhythm around you, but deep within, a quieter melody called you elsewhere. No matter how much you tried to blend in, there was always something setting you apart. That difference wasn't a flaw. It was a sign. You have been marked by something greater than yourself. To be a chosen one is not a title of pride. It's a sacred responsibility. It means your spirit has been wired to perceive beyond the surface, to feel what others ignore, and to carry light into places where shadows rule. It's not a path for the faint of heart. It's a road walked by the few who are called, not by comfort, but by conviction. Even before you understood your purpose, the evidence was there. You saw through facades. You questioned what others accepted blindly. While the crowd chased trends, your soul longed for truth, for something eternal. That inner ache wasn't confusion. It was a calling. And now, that calling is awakening. You were not born to follow the crowd, but to rise above it. Not to seek popularity, but to embody purpose. The loneliness you felt, the misunderstanding you've endured, they are not punishments, but confirmations, signs that you were designed for a higher path. To be chosen means you carry a light the world cannot comprehend, and because of that light, your journey will never be ordinary. It will be sacred, intentional, marked by divine orchestration and supernatural protection. You are not like the rest, because you were never meant to be. As you continue along the path of awakening, you may have noticed something strange yet consistent. Being around too many people leaves you feeling exhausted, anxious, even spiritually suffocated. It's as if the air becomes heavier, your spirit recoils, and your inner peace slowly slips away. At times, you've questioned yourself. Am I antisocial? Is there something wrong with me? But deep down, your soul knows the truth. You are not made to move with the crowd. This sacred disconnect isn't a flaw in your design. It's a form of divine protection. You were created with a heightened sensitivity, a spiritual awareness that allows you to perceive more than just words or appearances. You sense energy. You feel intention. You detect what is unspoken, what lies beneath the surface. And because your spirit is tuned to a higher frequency, being around the masses, where chaos, unresolved wounds, and unconscious energy swirl, creates a sharp contrast. It's like light trying to blend with shadows. The vibrations simply don't align. This misalignment is not a coincidence. It's sacred strategy. The divine has intentionally set you apart, not to isolate you in pain, but to preserve the purity of your purpose. If you were constantly immersed in the noise of the world, your vision would blur, your energy would scatter, and your calling could be compromised. That's why you feel the pull to retreat after social encounters. So when you feel the tension rise in a crowd, when your soul longs for stillness, listen. That is your spirit recognizing the disconnect, not as rejection of others, but as recognition of who you truly are. You weren't meant to carry everyone's energy. You were meant to carry light. You are chosen, and your sacred separation is part of the call. If you've ever felt like life pushed you into seasons of solitude, where friends faded, relationships fell away, and the noise of the world quieted. You're not alone. In fact, you're right where you're supposed to be. For the chosen ones, isolation is never accidental. It's intentional. It's not a punishment, but a divine strategy. When God sets someone apart, He often begins by removing the distractions. Not because you're meant to be lonely forever, but because you're meant to be prepared. Great missions require great focus. And focus is forged in quiet places. Look through Scripture, and you'll see the same pattern again and again. Before Moses led a nation, he wandered the wilderness. Before Elijah called down fire, he hid in a cave. Even Jesus withdrew to mountains and gardens to pray, alone, before walking into miracles. The wilderness was not where they were abandoned. It was where they were anointed. Your isolation has purpose. It is the sacred space where God removes what no longer serves you and begins to whisper the truth of who you are. It is in these hidden seasons that your discernment sharpens, your spirit strengthens, and your calling becomes clearer. When the noise fades, the voice of God can rise. You may grieve the people who left. You may mourn the doors that closed. But understand this: some were not meant to walk with you into your destiny. They were part of your development, not your destination. So instead of resenting your solitude, embrace it. It is your training ground, a place where heaven equips you for what's coming next. You are not being cast aside. You are being consecrated. In the stillness, the chosen are made ready. As a chosen one, your soul is equipped with more than just awareness. It's wired with profound sensitivity. You feel deeply, intensely, and often without explanation. This isn't a flaw. It's not weakness. It is a sacred gift, a divine trait embedded in your spirit to help you navigate a broken world. But with that gift comes a burden. You don't just hear people's words. You feel their pain, sense their energy, and absorb their unspoken emotions. You can walk into a room and detect tension without a single word being said. You know when someone is pretending to smile through pain, when chaos is hidden beneath silence. This is not your imagination. It is empathic sensitivity, and it runs through your very being. Yet while this sensitivity allows you to offer healing, compassion, and truth, it also makes you vulnerable. Without spiritual boundaries, you begin to carry what was never yours: grief, anxiety, anger, fear. Over time, it becomes overwhelming. Exhaustion follows, and you're left wondering why simply being around others leaves you feeling drained. That's why the divine often calls you away from the crowd. It's not because you lack love for people. It's because your heart is so open, it risks being overrun. The world is not kind to open spirits. Many project their wounds without knowing it, and you, being tuned into the soul-level frequency, absorb far more than most ever will. Solitude becomes your sanctuary. In stillness, you release what's not yours. In sacred spaces, your soul is cleansed and your light restored. You must learn to protect this gift, not in fear, but in wisdom. Because your empathy isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. And if you are to lead others into healing, you must first learn to guard your own light. With great calling comes great responsibility. And for the chosen one, that responsibility begins with clarity. The path you walk isn't common. It isn't crowded. It's narrow, intentional, and sacred. And for you to fulfill what God has assigned, your vision must remain clear, focused, and undistracted. This is why your life cannot be cluttered with noise. Distractions may seem harmless, even pleasant at times. But for someone like you, who carries divine instructions, distractions can be dangerous. They blur your inner vision, scatter your energy, and drown out the still, small voice of the divine. You cannot afford to be pulled in every direction. Your mission is too important. When you felt the sudden urge to withdraw from social gatherings, when certain conversations felt hollow or draining, that was your spirit recognizing the dissonance. That discomfort is not random. It's a holy signal reminding you that not every room deserves your presence, and not every voice deserves your attention. Because every moment you spend in misaligned spaces costs you clarity. And clarity is your spiritual compass. Your assignment, whether it's to heal, lead, teach, or awaken others, requires a sharpness that only solitude can sharpen. In the quiet, you hear what heaven is saying. In the stillness, divine blueprints are revealed. Without that space, your path becomes foggy, and your power, diluted. The enemy knows this. That's why confusion often comes wrapped in busyness and shallow connection. But you weren't made for surface-level living. You were made to move with intentionality, to walk in alignment with God's rhythm, not the world's rush. So protect your clarity. Guard your focus like treasure. Because your next step may not just change your life, it may awaken someone else's. You've asked the questions in silence. Why is it taking so long? Why do others seem to move ahead while I remain hidden? But what you may not have realized is that your delay is not denial. It is divine orchestration. As a chosen one, your life doesn't follow the patterns of the world. You don't move on society's schedule. You move on heaven's timeline. And while that timing may feel slow, confusing, or even painful, it is always perfect. The divine is never in a rush, because what he is building in you is meant to last. Every closed door, every unexpected ending, every quiet season of your life has been part of a greater design. You are being pruned, refined, prepared, not only for your purpose, but for the weight of it. Because the truth is, your calling demands maturity, depth, and spiritual strength that can't be developed overnight. What looks like a detour is often a divine redirection. While others may chase opportunity, your steps are ordered. God removes people before they distract you. He delays blessings until your foundation is strong enough to hold them. He conceals you in obscurity until you're spiritually fortified for visibility. This is protection, not punishment. So when life feels still, when you sense pause instead of progress, remember, seeds don't bloom the moment they're planted. They grow silently beneath the soil, hidden, but alive. Trust the timing. He who called you knows exactly when to release you. And when that moment comes, you won't have to force anything. You'll simply step into what was always meant to be. Your life is unfolding by divine design, and your season of revealing is drawing near. There's a reason your voice hasn't reached the masses yet. A reason your gifts have remained tucked away in quiet places. A reason your light has been seen only by a few. You have been hidden, not forgotten, not overlooked, but intentionally concealed by the hand of the divine. Being chosen does not always mean immediate visibility. In fact, for many, it means just the opposite. Before elevation comes preparation, and before preparation can complete its work, there must be isolation, refinement, and growth. Away from the spotlight. God hid you because he was protecting what he placed inside of you. He was building strength in your silence, shaping your character when no one was watching. He was teaching you to stand without applause, to trust his voice without needing validation, to walk with purpose even when no one understood. You weren't being buried. You were being planted. And just like a seed must remain underground before it breaks through the soil, your hidden season has been necessary. It is in the darkness where roots grow deep. It is in obscurity that resilience is born. When the time is right, and only when it's right, God will reveal what he has been preparing. You will not need to push your way forward. The doors will open because heaven will open them, and you will walk through, not as someone desperate to be seen, but as someone fully equipped to serve. So don't despise your hidden season. It was never meant to confine you. It was designed to complete you. Because what is unseen by the world is still known by heaven. And when heaven reveals you, the world will see the power of a life protected, preserved, and prepared on purpose. So now breathe. Stand in the fullness of who you are. You were not made to blend in. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were marked, refined, and commissioned for a purpose only you can fulfill. The separation you've endured, it is not your prison, it is your sanctuary. The silence you've walked through, it was not abandonment, it was divine intimacy. You were set apart because you were set above. Now go forth, not seeking the crowd's approval, but carrying heaven's assignment. Move with clarity. Speak with purpose. Shine without apology. Because chosen one, your time has come. Pause. Take a breath. Because what you are about to watch is not just another motivational message, it is a sacred moment crafted just for you. This isn't coincidence, it's divine alignment. God has orchestrated this precise moment to speak life into your soul. You've cried out for a sign, begged for clarity, and waited patiently in the dark, hoping for a breakthrough. Beloved, this is it. Heaven has spoken, and the verdict has been delivered. Your battle is over. Can you feel the shift? The atmosphere is different now. Burdens are lifting, chains are falling, and something powerful is being released into your life. God is not only answering your prayers, He is declaring justice, freedom, and favor over your circumstances. This isn't just encouragement. It's your spiritual confirmation. Before beginning the video, let's subscribe, like this video, and stay with me until the end of this message, and you will understand why you were led here. This is your moment. Picture yourself standing in a divine courtroom bathed in celestial light. Every moment of pain, every silent tear, every whispered prayer has been laid bare, not as evidence of failure, but as proof of endurance. Around you, angelic witnesses stand in reverent silence, acknowledging the battles you've fought in secret. And then, from the throne of heaven, God speaks, not with condemnation, but with compassion. His words resound with power and mercy. The case is closed. This declaration isn't symbolic, it is final, eternal, and personal. What once weighed you down, the never-ending battles, the burdens that felt too heavy to carry, have now been lifted. He has witnessed your growth, your persistence, your faith that held on even when hope seemed distant. The time for struggle is over. The season of striving has come to an end. With this heavenly decree, a spiritual shift begins to unfold. Chains that once held you back are broken. Cycles of pain, patterns of fear, and voices of doubt begin to fall silent. You are no longer on trial. You are no longer in waiting. This is the moment where justice meets grace, where the past loses its grip, and where your new beginning finds its footing. The battle is no longer yours to fight. It belongs to God, and He has already declared victory on your behalf. Your case is closed, and your freedom has begun. Now that the case is closed, the question lingers in your heart. Why did I have to go through so much? Was all that pain truly necessary? The answer is gentle, but profound. Yes, it had a purpose. Your suffering was never in vain. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, and every closed door was part of a divine strategy. Like a blacksmith refining metal through fire, God was shaping you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Preparation always precedes promotion. And your trials were the classroom where strength, wisdom, and spiritual maturity were forged. Just as the Israelites wandered through the wilderness to learn faith and obedience before entering the promised land, your own desert season taught you what comfort never could. In your waiting, you discovered trust. In your heartbreak, you uncovered resilience. In the silence, you heard the whisper of God's voice. Perhaps you learned patience, waiting without giving up. Or you uncovered your true worth, no longer settling for less than God's best. Maybe through deep hurt, you learned forgiveness, not to excuse the wound, but to heal the soul. These were not random struggles. They were sacred lessons, and you've passed them all. Now, like a student graduating after years of study, you stand at the threshold of your next chapter. And because you allowed the pain to mold you, you are now ready to carry the purpose it prepared you for. The pain had a purpose, and now, so does your path forward. Now that the purpose behind your pain has been revealed, something within you shifts. You're not just being released from the past, you're being called into something new. This is more than an ending. It's a divine beginning. The same God who declared your case closed is now opening a door no man can shut. But with every new chapter comes a choice. The familiar, even when painful, can feel strangely safe. Old habits, toxic attachments, and limiting beliefs may try to cling to you like shadows. There's comfort in the known, even when the known has broken your heart. But God is calling you out of survival and into revival. He's asking you to leave behind the identity that was shaped by struggle and step into the person you were always created to become. This chapter isn't defined by hardship. It's marked by healing, growth, and favor. And though it may feel unfamiliar, it is entirely aligned with the destiny God has written for you. Isaiah 43:19 whispers to your soul, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" Yes. It takes courage to walk through a new door, but know this: you are not walking alone. The same God who led you through the valley is guiding you now with purpose and precision. This is your invitation to rise, not just to start over, but to start higher. Your past prepared you, but it no longer defines you. Your new chapter begins now. As you prepare to walk fully into the new chapter God has opened before you, there is one more vital step: letting go. While God has declared your freedom, it is now your responsibility to live in that freedom by releasing what no longer serves your soul. So ask yourself honestly, what am I still holding on to? Maybe it's a wound from the past that reopens when the world goes quiet. Or perhaps it's a voice, faint but persistent, that tells you you're not enough, no matter how far you've come. It could be regret over missed opportunities, guilt that lingers over past decisions, or the belief that you're destined to repeat the same struggles. These are more than just memories. They are attachments, silent chains of emotion that keep you connected to an old version of yourself, one that God has already set free and called into something greater. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let your past dictate your future. Releasing attachments is not a denial of your journey. It's a declaration that your story is no longer stuck. Forgiveness is a key part of this release. Forgiving others, forgiving yourself. Not to excuse the pain, but to set your heart free. When you choose release, you create room. Room for healing, room for joy, room for God to do something new. Whisper these words over your heart. I let go. I am not what I was. I am ready to receive what's ahead. Because freedom isn't just given, it must be embraced. With your hands now free from the weight of old attachments, your heart becomes open, ready to receive something far more powerful: divine guidance. The noise of the past once clouded your vision, but in this sacred stillness, you can finally hear what has always been there: God's gentle voice. Divine guidance doesn't always come as thunder from the heavens. More often it arrives in whispers, in the quiet nudge, the sudden peace, the unexpected clarity that settles in your spirit. Like the prophet Elijah, who found God not in the wind, fire, or earthquake, but in a still small voice, you too are invited to lean into the silence, to listen deeply. It begins with presence. A few moments of stillness in the morning, a breath before a decision, a pause in the chaos. These become sacred spaces where God speaks, not with pressure, but with peace, not with fear, but with gentle assurance. As you tune your heart to His frequency, you'll begin to notice divine patterns, doors opening, confirmations aligning, moments of knowing that can't be explained. What once felt like coincidence now feels intentional, guided. And here's the truth: you were never meant to walk this path alone. The God who brought you out is now walking you forward, step by step, whisper by whisper. So slow down, breathe. Ask Him, what do you want me to see today? And then trust that even in silence, heaven is speaking. Revelation is a sacred gift, but its true power is only unlocked when it's followed by action. God has spoken. You've received clarity, healing, and confirmation. But now, heaven is asking something of you. Move. Many people stop at the moment of spiritual insight, believing the breakthrough is complete. But a word from God is not an end, it's an invitation. An invitation to trust Him beyond what's comfortable and to step into the unfamiliar with faith. Think of Moses. When God called him to lead His people, it wasn't enough to simply hear the voice from the burning bush. He had to go. Joshua still had to march. Abraham had to leave everything familiar behind. Each one took a step before the miracle ever arrived. So, what about you? Maybe God has placed a dream on your heart, whispered an idea, or nudged you to restore a relationship or take a bold leap forward. Don't let fear keep you paralyzed in the space between knowing and doing. Faith doesn't just believe, it moves. And even the smallest act of obedience can open the door to something far greater than you imagined. Take one step today. Send the message, write the plan, speak the truth. When you act on what God has shown you, you align yourself with His power. And that's where transformation becomes reality. The revelation was real. Now let your response be just as bold. Taking action is a powerful beginning, but to truly walk in the fullness of what God is building in your life, you must strengthen the foundation beneath your feet. Breakthrough is beautiful, but without consistency, even the strongest revelation can fade into memory. Spiritual transformation is not a one-time moment, it's a way of life. Just as a house must be anchored to withstand storms, your new season must be rooted in daily practice. What God has begun in you needs nurturing, shaping, and commitment to grow deep and last long. This means showing up, not just in times of crisis, but in the quiet, ordinary moments. It means starting your day with gratitude instead of worry, turning to prayer before panic, and seeking God's wisdom before the world's answers. These small habits are not small at all. They are the bricks that build a life anchored in truth. There will be distractions. There will be days when old patterns try to return. But now you have the tools to respond differently. You're not building on shifting emotions. You're building on God's faithfulness. Stay rooted. Return often to the promises He's spoken over your life. Let His word be your compass. Let worship be your rhythm. Let grace be the mortar that holds it all together. Because this isn't just about experiencing freedom. It's about living from it day by day. And strong foundations don't just hold your present. They carry your future. A strong foundation anchors you, but it's faith that keeps you standing through every changing season. It's what sustains you in the valleys, in the waiting, and in the quiet spaces where answers haven't yet arrived. There will be days when the light feels dim, when doubts whisper louder than truth, and when circumstances seem to challenge everything God has promised. But that's when your faith must speak louder, not a loud faith in words, but a steady faith in posture. A heart that says, even when I don't see it, I still believe. Remember, God's promises are not dependent on your emotions. He is faithful even when you feel uncertain. Like the disciples caught in a storm, you might fear the waves, but Jesus is in the boat, calm, unwavering, and in control. When fear returns, don't run, be still. When questions rise, don't panic, pray. Let your faith be a quiet anchor, not a desperate shout. Because true faith doesn't deny the storm, it trusts the one who commands it. And when joy comes, when victories arrive, don't forget where your strength came from. Let your gratitude be loud, and your devotion even louder. Faith is not fragile when it's built on God's truth. It is unshakable. This journey you're on isn't about never facing trouble again. It's about facing it differently, with God beside you and faith within you. That kind of faith holds, always. As your faith matures and your foundation strengthens, something beautiful begins to happen. You don't just carry God's truth, you become a vessel of it. Your life starts to reflect the very grace that sustained you. You are no longer just receiving from God. Now you're overflowing. This isn't about perfection or performance. It's about availability. God isn't looking for flawless people. He's looking for willing hearts. Hearts that say, "Here I am, Lord. Use me." When you've walked through fire and come out refined, your life becomes a light for others still searching for a way out. Your testimony becomes someone else's roadmap. Your healing becomes a signpost that hope is real. You begin to live not just for survival, but for impact. And it happens in the everyday moments. A kind word, a listening ear, a bold act of obedience when no one is watching. These are the ways you carry His presence into a hurting world. You become the bridge between brokenness and restoration. Just as Jesus walked among people, not above them, so are you called to live, humbly, compassionately, and courageously. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs hearts set on fire by love, filled with grace and willing to shine. You are that vessel. Your scars now carry purpose. Your story carries light. And your life is becoming a living testimony to what God can do through a surrendered soul. You've come a long way, from wounds to wisdom, from waiting to awakening. You've stood in the fire and found faith, walked through darkness and discovered light. And now, with your burdens lifted and your spirit renewed, the path ahead is clear. It's time, not just to believe differently, but to live differently. God has closed the case. The battle that once defined you no longer has power over you. You are not who you used to be. You are stronger, braver, more grounded in truth than ever before. And this new chapter you're stepping into, it's not something to tiptoe through. It's something to embrace with boldness. Walk forward with your head high, not in pride, but in purpose. Carry what God has placed within you, the peace, the vision, the calling, and let it shape every word you speak, every step you take. The road ahead may have challenges, but now you face them with faith, not fear. You were never meant to stay where you were. You were meant to rise, to rebuild, and to reflect God's glory through your story. So take the next step, then the next, and let your life echo the truth. You are chosen. You are ready. You are free. The battle is over. The breakthrough is here, and your future is wide open. Now go. Walk boldly. Your story is just beginning. Life doesn't move in a straight line. It unfolds through different seasons, challenges, and moments of deep realization. For many, society defines success by age milestones. Graduate in your 20s, peak in your 30s, and settle down by 40. But what if the real journey doesn't begin until 40? What if your 40th birthday is not a countdown to aging, but a divine appointment for becoming? If you've always felt different, out of place in shallow conversations, drawn toward deeper meaning, or burdened by an invisible calling, then this message is for you. You are a chosen one, a soul with a sacred purpose, and your life truly begins at 40. Let us walk together through the 8 profound reasons why this chapter of your life might just be the most important one yet. 1. You have mastered the art of letting go. In the earlier chapters of life, the instinct to hold on is strong. We cling to relationships, identities, and expectations, not always because they nourish us, but because they're familiar. Even when something hurts, we hesitate to release it, fearing the emptiness that might follow. Letting go feels like failure, like giving up on what we once hoped would last. But something shifts as you step into the wisdom of 40. You begin to see letting go not as loss, but as liberation. You recognize that release is not about giving up. It's about making room. Room for peace. Room for joy. Room for the person you are becoming. With each heartbreak, every disappointment, and every season of pain, you've gathered something precious. Clarity. You've learned that holding on to what no longer serves your growth only weighs you down. And now, you no longer mourn what leaves. You bless it, thank it for its lesson, and gently open your hands. This is not a lesson learned overnight. It's carved from years of living, of wrestling with change, and of slowly awakening to the truth that your worth is not tied to what you keep, but to what you're willing to release for the sake of your becoming. Letting go has become a quiet strength in your life. It has shown you how to trust the ups and downs, how to let go without fear, and how to make room for what truly belongs. In doing so, you've found real peace. 2. Time no longer controls you. For much of your life, time felt like a race. There was always a clock ticking, subtle, relentless, pushing you to do more, to be more, to reach certain milestones by certain ages. Whether it was career, relationships, or personal success, everything seemed urgent, as if you were falling behind some invisible standard set by society. But now, as you step into the deeper awareness that comes with 40, something profound begins to shift. You start to understand that the pressure was never real. It was only a story you were taught to believe. Time is no longer your master. It becomes your companion. Instead of rushing, you begin to trust. Trust that your life is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust that divine timing governs every chapter, every opportunity, and every pause. This realization brings freedom. The anxiety that once lived in the gap between where you are and where you thought you should be begins to fade. You become grounded in the present, no longer haunted by the past or obsessed with the future. You move with intention now, not urgency. You understand that what is meant for you will never miss you. And in that stillness, in that surrender, you finally reclaim your rhythm, not by speeding up, but by letting go of the need to rush. Time no longer controls you. It flows with you. 3. You discover your true purpose. In the earlier seasons of life, purpose often feels elusive. You try on different roles, pursuing careers, chasing dreams, achieving goals, all in hopes that one of them will finally feel like home. Yet, despite your efforts, something always seems to be missing. A quiet ache lingers beneath the surface, whispering that there's more to who you are than what the world sees. At 40, that whisper becomes a revelation. Suddenly, the scattered pieces of your past begin to make sense. The struggles that once seemed random, the paths that ended abruptly, and the years that felt wasted, all of it begins to reveal its purpose. What once looked like detours now appear as necessary steps in your becoming. You realize that your pain was not punishment, but preparation. Every setback sharpened your insight. Every redirection refined your calling. And now, for the first time, you feel a sense of inner alignment, a deep knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. This is the moment when purpose stops being a question and starts becoming a calling. It's not about titles or applause. It's about impact, meaning, and living in harmony with your soul. You no longer chase purpose outside yourself. You remember it from within. You step forward not with uncertainty, but with conviction, because you've been prepared for this. And now, you are ready to walk in your truth, not to prove anything, but simply to fulfill what was always yours to carry. 4. You no longer seek external validation. There was a time when being seen, understood, and approved by others felt essential. You shaped parts of yourself to fit in, softened your voice, concealed your doubts, and wore masks that kept you feeling safe. Praise felt like affirmation, criticism like rejection. And so, you lived much of your life seeking permission to be who you truly were. But with age and experience comes clarity. And at 40, something within you shifts. You begin to understand that real freedom doesn't come from being accepted by others. It comes from accepting yourself. The validation you once craved from the outside begins to rise from within. You no longer feel the need to explain your choices or justify your path. The opinions that once shaped you now pass through you, no longer holding power. This new confidence isn't loud or performative. It's quiet, rooted, and unshakable. It comes from knowing who you are, flaws, gifts, history, and all, and choosing to honor that truth unapologetically. You stop bending to expectations that no longer serve you. You let go of the need to be liked, and instead focus on being real. You no longer chase approval because you've realized that worth isn't given. It's remembered. Now you walk your path with integrity. Whether others understand or not no longer defines you, because your value isn't found in their applause. It's found in your own alignment with your truth, your peace, and your purpose. 5. Your spiritual awakening deepens. Spiritual awakening often begins as a subtle stirring, a quiet pull towards something greater than yourself. In your younger years, it may have shown up in moments of wonder, a longing for deeper meaning, or unexplainable feelings that whispered of something beyond the physical world. But life's noise often drowned those whispers out. Now, at 40, those whispers grow louder, clearer. The distractions that once consumed your energy begin to fade, and in their place emerges a hunger for truth, stillness, and connection. You no longer chase answers in the outer world. Instead, you turn inward, and there, you find wisdom waiting. The challenges you've faced, the synchronicities you've witnessed, the paths that led you through both light and shadow, none of it was random. You begin to see a divine pattern woven through it all. What once felt chaotic now feels orchestrated with sacred precision. Your intuition sharpens, your dreams carry meaning. You find yourself drawn to practices that nourish your soul, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, or simply moments of silence beneath the sky. These are no longer habits. They are lifelines. You begin to trust the guidance that flows from within. You understand that the divine doesn't live somewhere far away. It lives within you. And as you deepen this connection, you begin to live with a sense of peace, purpose, and profound alignment. This is no longer just an awakening. It is a return, a homecoming to your truest self. 6. Your energy becomes magnetic. As you grow into yourself, you begin to sense the world differently, not just through sight or sound, but through energy. At 40, your awareness sharpens. You notice how people make you feel, how environments affect your peace, and how your own presence carries weight. This isn't imagination, it's intuition coming alive. In earlier years, you may have ignored the heaviness around certain people or tolerated spaces that drained your spirit. You stayed out of obligation, habit, or fear of conflict. But now you move differently. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because you finally understand that it is. This new awareness transforms how you live. You no longer give your time to relationships that pull you down or conversations that leave you empty. Instead, you seek alignment, harmony, flow. You know when something resonates with your soul and when it doesn't, and you honor that without guilt. As you become more intentional with your thoughts, emotions, and actions, your energy shifts. It strengthens, it clarifies, and that clarity becomes magnetic. You begin attracting people, opportunities, and experiences that reflect your growth and support your journey. You are no longer just reacting to life, you are shaping it. With focused energy and conscious presence, you create space for joy, peace, and purpose to thrive. Your energy speaks before you do, and now it speaks truth, strength, and light. 7. You embrace solitude as sacred. There was a time when solitude echoed like loneliness, a gentle ache that slipped in with the silence when the world finally grew quiet. You may have filled your days with noise, people, or distractions just to avoid the silence. Like many, you once believed that being alone meant something was missing. But now, at 40, solitude transforms into something sacred. You begin to see that silence isn't empty, it's full of truth. In the stillness, you meet yourself again, not the version shaped by expectations, but the one your soul has always known. You no longer run from quiet moments. You crave them. Solitude becomes your sanctuary. It's in these spaces of retreat that clarity emerges. You reflect, realign, and reconnect with the divine voice within. No longer do you seek validation or direction from the outside. Instead, you turn inward and discover a source of wisdom that has always been there, waiting. You understand now that solitude doesn't separate you from the world. It strengthens your presence in it. Time alone becomes a place of healing, of creativity, of spiritual renewal. You find beauty in your own company and strength in your own stillness. What once felt heavy now feels holy. You realize you were never truly alone, because Spirit, the universe, and your higher self have been walking beside you all along. And in this sacred quiet, you rise stronger, clearer, and more connected than ever before. 8. You finally live for yourself. For much of your life, you may have worn masks to meet expectations of family, of society, even of your younger self. You made choices to please others, to avoid conflict, or to fit into roles that never truly reflected who you are. You put your own dreams on hold, telling yourself there would be time later. But now, something within you awakens. At 40, you begin to see life differently. You realize how precious time is, and how costly it is to live a life that doesn't belong to you. The weight of expectation starts to fall away, and in its place rises something more powerful: permission. Permission to be honest, to be bold, to finally be you. You no longer feel the need to shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. You no longer trade your peace for approval. Instead, you begin choosing what aligns with your spirit, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for your truth. Living for yourself doesn't mean abandoning those you love. It means showing up more fully, more authentically, because you're no longer living divided. You pursue passions that light you up. You say yes when it feels right, and no without guilt. You honor your needs, your voice, your worth. This is not selfishness. It's wholeness. You are no longer surviving life. You are shaping it with intention and courage. And in doing so, you finally begin to live, not for anyone else's story, but for your own. If you've made it to this point in life, through the storms, the stillness, the questions, and the quiet awakenings, know this: you didn't come this far by accident. Every detour was direction. Every delay was divine timing. Everything you've endured was part of a sacred preparation to bring you here, to this moment of arrival. 40 is not the beginning of the end. It's the unveiling of who you were always meant to be. You are not behind. You are becoming. This chapter is not about chasing more, proving your worth, or meeting someone else's timeline. It's about reclaiming your power, honoring your truth, and stepping fully into the life your soul was born to live. You are no longer who the world told you to be. You are who you were called to be. So walk forward with grace, with purpose, with your heart open and your spirit grounded. The best isn't behind you. The best is just beginning. If this message has stirred something within you, if it resonated with your spirit, then you were meant to hear it. Thank you for sharing this space, for opening your heart, and for walking this path with us. If you feel aligned with this journey, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, a place where purpose meets presence and awakening is celebrated. Join a growing community of souls walking in truth, light, and divine timing. The best is yet to come, and we're just getting started. In every age of crisis, history often records the rise of a most unlikely figure, someone unexpected, sometimes controversial, but ultimately instrumental. It's in those defining moments that one begins to wonder, are these just coincidences or divine appointments? Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States, has been a figure marked by controversy, bold innovation, and profound shifts in the American political landscape. Through elections, impeachment trials, global diplomacy, and national unrest, he has not merely survived, he has often emerged emboldened. To some, these are merely the twists and turns of political drama. But to others, particularly within the Christian community, his journey mirrors the biblical pattern of chosen leaders, flawed, misunderstood, and at times opposed, yet sovereignly positioned by God. Could it be that Trump is more than just a man of influence? Could he be, like the figures of old, an unexpected tool in God's hands? Let's explore 7 compelling biblical signs that suggest Trump might be God's chosen instrument for such a time as this. Sign 1. The prophecy of Isaiah 45 and the parallel to Cyrus. Throughout history, God has shown a pattern of using the most unexpected individuals to carry out his divine will. One such example appears in the book of Isaiah chapter 45, where God speaks directly to a Persian king named Cyrus. Remarkably, Cyrus was not an Israelite, not a prophet, nor even a believer in the God of Israel. Yet God called him his anointed, appointing him to free the Jewish people from Babylonian captivity and commission the rebuilding of Jerusalem. I summon you by name and bestow on you a title of honor, though you do not acknowledge me. The number 45, the chapter in which this prophecy appears, also happens to correspond with Donald Trump's position as the 45th President of the United States. To some, this is merely a numerical coincidence, but to others, it is a compelling parallel, a divine echo. Like Cyrus, Trump emerged from outside the religious establishment. He was not known for spiritual leadership, nor was he the favored choice among religious elites, and yet he rose to power and took bold steps in support of causes central to biblical prophecy. Cyrus did not know God intimately, yet he fulfilled God's purposes. In the same way, Trump, despite his imperfections, may be operating under a higher plan, one that he himself may not fully understand. Just as Cyrus was used to bless Israel and set a course of restoration, some believe Trump may have been raised up for such a time as this, to protect, restore, and even prepare the way for what is yet to come. In the biblical pattern, it's not always the most holy who are chosen, but the most strategically positioned. And that, some say, is what makes Trump's story so prophetically significant. Sign 2. Recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. One of the most defining and controversial decisions of Donald Trump's presidency was his official recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. In 2017, he took the unprecedented step of relocating the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, something previous presidents had promised but never dared to do. For many, it was a bold political move. But for others, especially within the faith community, it was far more than diplomacy. It was the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. Jerusalem is not just a city in the Bible. It is the beating heart of God's covenant with his people, the spiritual epicenter where divine history unfolds. Mentioned over 800 times in Scripture, it is the city where God's presence dwelled, where kings reigned, prophets wept, and the Messiah was revealed. Its significance transcends time and politics. It is central to God's redemptive plan. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. By recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, Trump aligned his administration with this biblical promise. He didn't just shift foreign policy, he affirmed a spiritual reality that many believe had been long denied. To those who understand prophecy, this act was deeply symbolic, viewed as a step toward the Messianic era, when Jerusalem would once again take its place at the center of global attention. Scriptures in Ezekiel and Revelation speak of a time when Jerusalem becomes the dwelling place of God once more. For some, Trump's decision was more than strategic. It was prophetic. It re-established a divine alignment between heaven and earth, between God's promises and modern history. In doing so, he wasn't just making history. He may have been helping fulfill it. Sign 3. The Abraham Accords, a covenant of peace. In 2020, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, something remarkable happened, something that, for decades, the world believed to be nearly impossible. Multiple Arab nations, long at odds with Israel, signed historic peace agreements. These treaties, collectively known as the Abraham Accords, marked a profound turning point in Middle Eastern diplomacy. But to many, this was not just political progress. It was a prophetic moment unfolding before our very eyes. The name Abraham was not chosen at random. Abraham is the patriarch revered by Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. He represents the shared spiritual ancestry of these faiths, a father of nations, a man of covenant. The Accords invoked this unity, symbolizing a bridge between peoples once divided by hostility, but now walking cautiously toward reconciliation. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. What makes this moment truly striking from a biblical perspective is its connection to prophetic themes of peace and unity in the last days. In Isaiah 19, we read of a future where Egypt, Assyria, and Israel will stand together as a blessing upon the earth. The Abraham Accords seem to echo this vision, suggesting that a long-awaited moment of regional peace had begun to take shape. Yet, Scripture also offers a sobering reminder. In 1 Thessalonians 5:3 it says, "While people are saying, 'peace and safety,' destruction will come on them suddenly." This duality, peace on the surface but judgment looming, leads many to wonder, are we watching prophecy unfold? Donald Trump, a man not often associated with peacemaking, became the unexpected architect of one of the most prophetic peace efforts in modern times. Perhaps like others God has used, he was chosen not despite who he is, but because of it. Sign 4. War returns to Israel after Trump's departure. In the wake of Donald Trump's 2020 election defeat, the world braced for change. For many, it was the end of a political era. But for others, especially those watching through the lens of biblical prophecy, it signaled something far deeper, a spiritual shift. And almost as if on cue, a dark cloud began to gather over the Middle East. Israel, once enjoying a rare season of relative peace, was thrust back into the throes of war. During Trump's presidency, efforts like the Abraham Accords had ushered in an unprecedented calm across the region. But that fragile peace began to unravel shortly after his departure. Tensions reignited, enemies mobilized, and Jerusalem once again became a flashpoint for global conflict. To those with spiritual discernment, this wasn't just geopolitical unrest. It was the reawakening of ancient patterns foretold in Scripture. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. This prophecy echoes loudly in our modern era. Israel surrounded, global powers divided, Jerusalem at the center of contention. Some believe that Trump's exit removed a layer of divine protection, a spiritual covering that had, for a time, held back the chaos. In biblical history, when God's appointed leaders stepped away, hardship often followed, not as punishment, but as a reminder that divine order is not maintained by politics alone, but by God's sovereign hand. Trump's absence in this turbulent moment has led many to reflect. Was his time in power a window of divine favor? And is the return of war a sign that the prophetic clock has begun to turn once more? In the eyes of some believers, the answer is yes, and that makes this sign all the more sobering. Sign 5. A bullet misses by millimeters, a divine preservation. On July 13, 2024, during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, the unthinkable nearly happened. As Donald Trump stood before a cheering crowd, delivering a speech with his usual boldness, a single, seemingly insignificant movement changed everything. He turned his head slightly, barely a fraction, just as a bullet was fired in his direction. The shot, traveling with lethal speed, grazed his right ear instead of striking its intended mark. Panic erupted. Secret Service agents swarmed, the crowd screamed in shock. Yet in that instant of chaos, one truth emerged. Trump had narrowly escaped death. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. To many, this was simply luck or instinct, but to people of faith, it felt like divine intervention. A millisecond's delay, a different posture, and the outcome could have been fatal. Instead, Trump walked away, injured but alive. He would later reflect, only God prevented the unthinkable from happening. The Bible is filled with similar moments, times when God preserved his chosen ones in the face of certain destruction. David, pursued by Saul, was saved again and again. Daniel emerged unharmed from the lion's den. These weren't accidents. They were markers of divine protection. Trump's survival, against all odds, echoes that same heavenly pattern. It raises a question too large to ignore. Was his life spared for a purpose yet to be fulfilled? In a world where so much hangs in the balance, this moment served as a stark reminder. When God appoints someone for a mission, no weapon formed against them shall prosper. Whether Trump knows the full weight of that mission or not, this narrow escape spoke volumes to those who believe God still moves in powerful, unexpected ways. Sign 6. The defense of life. Pro-life convictions. Among the many positions Donald Trump took during his presidency, one of the most defining and deeply spiritual was his unwavering support for the protection of unborn life. From his earliest days in office, Trump made it clear he would be a president who stood for the sanctity of life. This commitment wasn't just political for many Americans, it was moral, even sacred. Trump backed pro-life legislation, cut funding to organizations that promoted abortion globally, and, perhaps most significantly, appointed conservative judges to the U.S. Supreme Court. These appointments ultimately reshaped the legal landscape, leading to a historic shift when Roe v. Wade was overturned, a landmark decision that returned the power to protect unborn life back to the states. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. This verse, treasured by millions of believers, speaks to the heart of the pro-life movement, the belief that every human life is a creation of God, known and loved before birth. By supporting pro-life policies, Trump aligned himself with this biblical truth, defending those who have no voice, standing for those who cannot yet stand for themselves. Critics often questioned how someone with Trump's background could become such a champion for life. But the Bible is filled with examples of unlikely people being used for divine purposes. From Moses to Paul, God often calls the unexpected to do what is most needed. For many believers, Trump's pro-life stance was more than political. It was providential. In a world that increasingly devalues life, his leadership became a defiant affirmation that life matters to God and must matter to us. It is this bold stand that many see as a clear sign of divine purpose woven into his presidency. Sign 7. Championing religious freedom in a time of repression. In recent years, expressions of faith, especially in public life, have come under increasing pressure. In schools, workplaces, and government spaces, the voice of religion has often been pushed to the margins. For many believers, it felt as though their values were being silenced. But during his presidency, Donald Trump stepped forward as an unexpected advocate for religious freedom. Unlike many political leaders who avoid faith-related issues out of caution or controversy, Trump confronted the issue head-on. He signed executive orders that protected the rights of religious organizations, ensuring they could receive government support without having to compromise their beliefs. He supported prayer in public schools, defended the rights of Christian adoption agencies, and took bold action to stand up for persecuted Christians around the world. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others. Trump's efforts weren't just about policy. They touched something deeper. To many people of faith, his actions sent a clear message. Your voice matters, your faith matters, and it deserves protection, not repression. At a time when many felt their spiritual freedoms were under attack, Trump gave them not only a voice but a defender in high office. In the Bible, religious freedom is more than a right. It's essential for revival. God calls his people to worship, to pray, to live boldly in their convictions. When leaders defend that freedom, they open the door for spiritual renewal. For millions, Trump's bold defense of religious liberty wasn't just political, it was prophetic. It reminded them that even in dark times, God can raise up unexpected leaders to protect what matters most, the right to believe, to worship, and to shine the light of truth. Throughout the pages of Scripture, we see God time and again using the unlikely, the imperfect, and the unexpected to fulfill his divine plans. From shepherd boys to foreign kings, he chooses not by appearance or reputation, but by purpose. Could Donald Trump be such a figure? Could the signs we've explored, his alignment with biblical prophecy, his protection of Israel, his defense of life and faith, point to something greater than mere politics? Like Cyrus in Isaiah 45, Trump may not fit the mold of a traditional spiritual leader, but perhaps, It's not the mold that matters. It's the mission. In a time of global uncertainty and moral confusion, some believe his role is part of something bigger, a divine assignment unfolding in real time. Of course, the final answer rests not in human opinion, but in God's sovereign design. Yet the signs invite us to pause, to pray, and to consider whether history is once again repeating a sacred pattern. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery and reflection. If this message stirred something in your heart, or gave you a new perspective, we invite you to like this video, share it with others, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring, faith-filled content rooted in biblical truth and prophetic insight. Your support helps us continue bringing these powerful stories to life, and together, we can keep shining the light of truth in a world that desperately needs hope. Until next time, stay encouraged, stay watchful, and may God bless you richly. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the mask shatters, when the chains that once kept you small rust away under the fire of your awakening. You were never made to shrink, to please, to beg for validation. You were born to rise, to command, and to transform. And now, the world feels your shift. This isn't just a new attitude. It's a rebirth. It's the universe aligning with the truest, most untouchable version of yourself. The version they tried to suppress but could never extinguish. Today you stop being the peacekeeper at the cost of your own soul. Today you stop explaining yourself to those unworthy of your story. Today you step into the sacred truth of who you were always destined to become. Let's dive deep into this transformation together, because your silence now roars, your glow now blinds, and your presence now demands respect, not permission. There comes a point when you must stop handing out explanations like apologies. You've spent too much time trying to justify your choices to people who were never truly listening, only scanning for flaws. It wasn't that you were unclear. It's that your clarity disrupted their comfort. You used to think if you said it kindly enough, clearly enough, they'd finally see your heart. But some people don't want to see. They cling to confusion because it gives them control. As long as you kept explaining, they stayed in charge of the narrative. Now you know better. You've learned that peace isn't found in over-explaining. It's found in letting go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them twist your silence into arrogance and your boundaries into betrayal. That's their story to carry, not yours to fix. You are no longer available for emotional translation. You don't owe anyone access to your truth just because they demand it. The ones who truly value you won't need constant explanations. They'll recognize your worth without a single word. For too long, you believed that giving everything you had, your time, your energy, your heart, was the highest form of love. You bent until you broke, convinced that your value was measured by how much of yourself you could pour into others. But no amount of sacrifice was ever enough. The more you gave, the more they expected, and the less they saw you. You carried the weight of relationships alone, mistaking exhaustion for loyalty. You silenced your own needs, believing that being selfless made you strong. But true strength isn't found in abandoning yourself. It's found in honoring yourself first. Now you know better. True love does not require you to become invisible. True connection does not demand that you bleed to prove your worth. Your needs, your dreams, your peace are not burdens. They are sacred responsibilities. You are no longer available for one-sided love. You are no longer willing to be drained to keep others comfortable. Choosing yourself is not selfish, it is survival. And you, finally, are allowed to protect your light without apology. There was a time when you believed that explaining yourself, defending your actions, or pleading for understanding would fix everything. You thought that if you just found the right words, people would finally see your heart. But no matter how much you spoke, they only heard what served their own narratives. Now you understand. Silence is more powerful than any argument. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. when you refuse to engage with those who twist your words and reject your truth. You reclaim your power. You stop feeding battles that were never meant to be won. In your silence, you become untouchable. You no longer waste your breath convincing anyone of your worth. You no longer argue with projections or beg for respect. Your absence speaks louder than your defense ever could. Those who once thrived on your reactions now sit unsettled, unable to control a version of you they can no longer provoke. Your peace becomes your shield, and your stillness becomes your roar. Not every battle needs your voice. Sometimes the loudest victory is walking away, quietly, powerfully, without a backward glance. Not all love is love. Sometimes what feels warm at first slowly turns into a cage. You once believed that love meant constant sacrifice, being agreeable, available, and endlessly forgiving. You thought their affection was proof of your worth. But real love never demands you lose yourself to keep it alive. True love nurtures your growth. It doesn't resent your independence. True love celebrates your voice. It doesn't silence it. When love comes with conditions, when it requires you to shrink, to bend, to stay silent, it's not love at all. It's control, hidden beneath sweet words and false affection. You see it clearly now. Their praise was never about your spirit. It was about your obedience. The moment you began setting boundaries, the mask slipped. Their warmth cooled. Not because you became unworthy, but because you stopped playing a role that served them. You are no longer available for love that demands your silence. You are no longer willing to confuse control for care. Real love honors your soul, not your submission. And now, you will accept nothing less. For too long, you molded yourself into who they wanted you to be. Agreeable, accommodating, endlessly understanding. You silenced your truth, softened your boundaries, and wore a smile even when your soul was aching, all to be accepted. But chasing approval is a race with no finish line. The more you gave, the more they expected, and the less of yourself you recognized. Now you understand. Being liked is not the goal. Being true to yourself is. Approval built on pretending is not connection. It is captivity. When you live for their acceptance, you die by their rejection. And no amount of validation can fill the emptiness left behind when you abandon yourself. Today, you choose authenticity over approval. You choose truth over performance. Those who truly see you will celebrate your honesty, not punish you for it. And those who fall away were never aligned with your soul. They were only clinging to the version of you that made them comfortable. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live fully, love deeply, and stand boldly in your own light, whether they applaud or not. You were the glue, the one who held everything together while quietly falling apart. You were always the first to reach out, the quickest to forgive, and the one who tirelessly found reasons to excuse their behavior, all in a desperate attempt to hold the peace that was never truly yours to keep. And then, something shifted. You stopped showing up where you weren't valued. You stepped back, not out of bitterness, but from exhaustion. And when you did, things began to crumble. The friendships faded, the conversations grew cold, and the support you once gave so freely was nowhere in return. But here's the truth. What falls apart in your absence was never stable to begin with. You were not part of their strength. You were their crutch. And now that you've stepped away, their silence speaks volumes. You no longer carry what isn't yours. You've made space for peace to replace obligation. Let it fall. Let it reveal itself. Because what remains without your sacrifice, that is what was real all along. There was a time when you dimmed your light to make others comfortable, when you whispered instead of speaking boldly, when you played small so you wouldn't be seen as too much. You thought fitting in was the safest way to be loved, but all it did was teach you how to disappear in plain sight. Now, your energy has shifted, and people feel it before you say a word. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. You enter with quiet power, knowing you belong, whether they welcome you or not. Your presence speaks for itself. It doesn't ask. It doesn't beg. It commands. And yes, it makes some people uncomfortable. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped apologizing for who you are. They miss the version of you that stayed small, silent, and easy to manage. But that version no longer exists. You weren't made to blend in. You were born to stand out. So take up space. Speak your truth. Let your energy be undeniable. And never shrink to soothe someone else's insecurity. You were taught to be nice, to say yes when you wanted to say no, to stay quiet when your soul was screaming, to avoid conflict at all costs. You wore politeness like a second skin, believing that being agreeable made you a good person. But over time, nice became a prison. You weren't being kind. You were being conditioned. Conditioned to please, to appease, to put everyone's needs above your own. You tolerated disrespect, forgave too quickly, and gave until you had nothing left, all in the name of being liked. But now you see it for what it was, a trap. They didn't respect your kindness. They relied on it to control you. Real kindness comes from strength, not fear. It's firm, it's wise, and it knows when to walk away. You no longer offer your goodness to those who treat it like weakness. You've learned to say no without guilt, to speak without apology, and to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You were never just nice. You were powerful. Now you finally act like it. There was a time when you shaped yourself to fit the roles others assigned you, the helper, the listener, the one who always said yes. You lived for their approval, feared disappointing them, and confused compliance with connection. You made yourself easy to depend on, believing that's what made you valuable. But not anymore. Now you walk in your truth. You no longer wait for permission to be who you are. You set boundaries without apology, speak without fear, and choose your own direction, even if it makes others uncomfortable. And it does. Your independence unsettles them, not because you've done something wrong, but because they can no longer control you. They're not used to the version of you that doesn't ask to be seen, who simply is, unapologetically. You've become what they never expected, whole without their approval. And that terrifies those who only knew how to relate to your weakness. Let it. You weren't born to be manageable. You were born to be free. You were taught to believe that love meant endurance, that if you gave enough, forgave enough, stayed long enough, it would eventually feel right. But love that makes you small, silent, or unsure of your worth is not love at all. It's control wrapped in false affection. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. It doesn't punish your boundaries or weaponize your emotions. Love without respect is a performance, one where only you are acting, while the other pulls the strings. You've done the emotional labor. You've excused the red flags and softened your truth for the sake of peace. But peace that costs your dignity is just quiet chaos. Now you know the difference. Love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. And you're done mistaking crumbs of affection for commitment. You deserve a love that listens, honors, and protects, not one that demands silence in exchange for attention. So walk away from what dishonors your spirit. You are not hard to love. You're just no longer willing to accept love that comes without respect. Pay close attention. Not everyone who clapped for you wanted you to win. Some only celebrated you when your success felt small enough not to threaten them. They smiled when you struggled, offered support when you doubted, and stayed close as long as you remained below their comfort line. But the moment you began to rise, confidently, unapologetically, their energy shifted. Suddenly, the praise turned to silence. The conversations grew shorter. The support disappeared. And that silence? It's not random. It's revealing. Your growth made them uncomfortable. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your light exposed where they were still hiding. Your confidence reminded them of the dreams they never chased. Your power disrupted the dynamic they once controlled. Let it. Their absence is not a loss. It's a filter. The ones who go quiet when you succeed were never your tribe. They were spectators of your struggle, not witnesses to your becoming. Appreciate the people who are happy for your success and still stand by your side, and let go of those who disappear when you finally start living fully as yourself. When people say they miss the old you, pause and ask yourself why. Was it really you they missed, or was it the version of you who was easier to control? The one who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who gave endlessly without asking for anything in return, who tolerated too much and questioned too little. The old you made others comfortable, even when it cost you your voice. And they loved that version, not because it reflected your truth, but because it served their convenience. You were accessible, agreeable, and easy to bend. But now you've changed. You've found your strength. You've started saying no, setting boundaries, and protecting your peace. And that shift has made some people uncomfortable. Don't mistake their discomfort for love. They're not grieving your essence. They're mourning the access they lost. And anyone who only valued you when you were shrinking is not someone you owe a return to. You didn't lose them. You simply outgrew who they needed you to be. You've shed the weight of pleasing, apologizing, and shrinking. What once held you back no longer defines you. You are not who you were. And that's your power. You've stepped into a version of yourself that no longer begs to be seen. Because now, you simply shine. Let this be a reminder. Your boundaries are sacred. Your voice is powerful. And your presence is enough. Exactly as it is. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this message stirred something in your spirit, I'd love for you to be part of this growing community. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a moment of truth, strength, and healing. You're not just rising, you're becoming unstoppable. And the world is better because you chose to stand tall. There is a moment in every chosen one's life when the world no longer makes sense the way it used to. When the noise fades, and something powerful, almost ancient, begins to stir from deep within. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it's undeniable. This is that moment. You, the soul forged in silence and tested in fire, are no longer the same. The world may still see you through the lens of who you were, but they can feel the change, even if they can't name it. It's not just growth. It's not just survival. It's transformation. They see the shift in your eyes, hear it in your silence, feel it in your presence. The truth is, your glow isn't on the way. It's already here. Before beginning the video, let's subscribe, like this video, and stay with me until the end of this message, and you will understand why you were led here. This is your moment. They may look at you now and wonder what changed. Some assume it's your appearance, your style, your glow, your posture. But what they're witnessing isn't surface level. It's the radiance of someone who was refined in silence and shaped by struggle. This isn't a makeover. It's a rebirth. You didn't rise because you followed trends or mimicked what was popular. You rose because you endured what others couldn't. Every ounce of strength you carry wasn't gifted. It was earned in the fires of rejection, betrayal, and quiet nights of deep self-reflection. The glow they see now? It came from within, from pain that didn't break you, but built you. And the irony? While they were watching for your downfall, your roots were growing deeper. You were transforming where no one could see, inwardly, spiritually, and eternally. Now that you've emerged, their confusion is loud, but your transformation is louder. They can imitate your look, your words, your walk, but they'll never replicate your spirit. Because you were not fashioned by trends, you were forged by truth, and that makes your presence not just beautiful, but unshakable. There was a time you tried to shrink, fitting yourself into the comfort zones of others, making yourself smaller so they wouldn't feel insecure. You softened your truth, dulled your shine, and wore humility like armor. But no more. The truth is, your light was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to illuminate. And now, as your spirit awakens and your energy expands, you're realizing that your very presence changes the atmosphere. You walk into a room, and something shifts. Conversations quiet. Eyes turn. Not because of your outfit or your voice, but because your essence enters first. Your light speaks before you do. It isn't arrogance. It's awareness. You've discovered who you are, and that self-knowing radiates in ways that can't be explained, only felt. Some may call it intimidating, others mysterious, but what they're really sensing is your alignment. You no longer blend in because you weren't created to. You were made to stand out, not for praise, but for purpose. So stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Let it shine unapologetically. Because when you walk fully in your truth, your presence becomes unforgettable. In a world that celebrates imitation, your refusal to pretend is what sets you apart. While others wear borrowed identities like costumes, chasing trends, reshaping themselves to be accepted, you show up as you are, no mask, just truth. That truth, though quiet, commands the room. You don't need to announce your authenticity. It radiates from you like warmth in winter, subtle yet undeniable. And while others scramble for applause, your stillness draws attention without effort. You're not trying to be different. You simply are, and that alone makes you unforgettable. Authenticity doesn't shout. It resonates. It doesn't beg for approval. It stands in confidence. Most people fear being seen without their layers, but you've stopped hiding. You've let your wounds breathe, let your story live, and in doing so, you've become magnetic, not because you seek validation, but because you embody liberation. Your authenticity is not rebellion, it's remembrance. A return to who you were before the world told you to become someone else. And that remembrance is powerful. It shakes people awake. It inspires some, unsettles others, but it always leaves a mark. Because real is rare. And you, just by being real, are changing everything. You've always known things without being told. While others listen to what's said, you hear what's left unsaid. You feel the tension in a glance, the ache behind a smile, the storm hiding beneath silence. It's not guesswork. It's your gift. Your intuition is not just a skill. It's a sacred language that doesn't require words. And while it may unsettle those who prefer masks, it comforts those longing to be seen. Because with you, they are seen. Not just for who they pretend to be, but for who they really are beneath the surface. You don't expose people. You reveal truth through presence. That's what makes you unforgettable. People come to you without knowing why. Strangers open up. Friends feel safe in your silence. It's not that you ask the right questions. It's that your energy gives them permission to drop their walls. You mirror back to them the emotions they've buried deep, and the ones who fear being known? They'll call you intense, maybe even too much. But the truth is, you're just deeply tuned in. You feel what others overlook. You sense what they suppress. That's not sensitivity. It's spiritual perception, and it's part of what makes your presence powerful beyond words. You no longer need to explain yourself. You don't raise your voice, don't draw lines with words, but somehow, people know. They feel it. There's a shift in your energy, a quiet authority that speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. This is what happens when you begin to honor your worth. You've stopped entertaining what drains you. Stop justifying your silence or defending your decisions to those who never truly listened. Now, when someone enters your space, they sense the difference. It's not coldness, it's clarity. A spiritual signal that says, this is sacred ground. You no longer allow chaos to cross your threshold, not because you're guarded, but because you finally understand the value of peace. Your presence itself draws a line that says, only what aligns may remain, and those who once took advantage of your kindness now tread carefully, not because you've become harsh, but because your energy no longer bends for comfort. It stands in truth. That's the power of an unspoken boundary. The strongest walls aren't built from bricks. They're built from self-respect. And the people who once mistook your silence for weakness now see it for what it truly is: strength, grounded and immovable. You didn't announce your evolution. You didn't need to. The shift within you spoke volumes before you ever said a word. Real transformation never begs to be seen. It simply becomes impossible to ignore. There's a new presence about you now. It's in your eyes, in your stillness, in the way you move through the world with quiet confidence. People may say you look different, but it's not your appearance that changed. It's your energy. Your light isn't cosmetic. It's cosmic. You've grown in silence, healed in solitude, and risen in ways most can't understand. While they were watching for signs on the outside, the real glow-up happened on the inside. That glow? It's the soft fire of someone who's met themselves in the dark and chose to rise with grace. They can't place what shifted, but they feel it. It's not style, it's spirit. You no longer walk in the room seeking space. You own it without trying. And while some are drawn to it, others are intimidated by it. Because deep down they know, what you carry can't be faked, copied, or taken. You didn't transform for applause. You transformed for alignment. And now, you glow because you've become who you were always meant to be. In a world that rushes to speak, you've mastered the rare strength of stillness. While others talk to be heard, you listen to understand. Not just the words, but the silence between them. That's where your power lies. Your empathy isn't loud or performative. It's quiet, deep and disarming. People feel safe around you without knowing why. Strangers open up, friends reveal secrets they've never shared, and even those who try to hide find themselves seen, completely and without judgment. It's not just kindness, it's presence. You feel what others avoid. You sense the sadness behind the smile, the fear behind the anger, the truth buried beneath the mask. And yet you don't expose or exploit. You hold space. You allow others to feel understood, sometimes for the first time. That kind of empathy can't be taught. It's a gift, a sacred one. And in a world starving for authenticity, your presence is a healing balm. It unsettles the fake and comforts the broken. They may not remember your words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Because in your presence, they found something they didn't know they were missing. Real connection. That's not softness. That's strength. That's your edge. You weren't made to race. You were made to rise. While others exhaust themselves trying to outshine, you've stepped into a different rhythm entirely, one that isn't frantic or forced. It's rooted in purpose. You've realized something most people never do. Competition is distraction, but creation is liberation. You're not here to mimic the crowd. You're here to build something they can't duplicate. Your ideas, your voice, your vision, it all flows from a place deeper than applause. That's why you don't panic when others succeed. You understand that your path is sacred and your timing divine. While they chase relevance, you craft legacy. There's a calmness in you that rattles those stuck in comparison. They don't understand how you move so confidently, so peacefully, without needing to prove anything. But that's the beauty of purpose. It eliminates the need for permission. Your focus is your fire. And by choosing to create instead of compete, you've become untouchable. Imitation can't reach where authenticity flows. You're not in the race because you've already won. In your own lane, by your own light, for your own reasons. And that's exactly why your energy can't be copied, because you didn't come to impress, you came to impact. You don't need to speak loudly to be heard. Your depth carries a silence that echoes louder than noise. And when you enter a space, it's not your volume that shifts the atmosphere, it's your presence. There's something about you that unsettles the surface level. While others chase attention with shallow charm, your energy cuts through illusions. You don't perform, you reveal. Not with speeches or demands, but through stillness, focus, and authenticity. Your eyes hold questions most people avoid asking. Your silence invites reflection. And in that quiet, others are forced to face themselves, sometimes for the very first time. It's not that you're trying to be intense. You simply refuse to live at the surface. You value meaning over mimicry, truth over trend, connection over crowd. Some admire you, others avoid you, but all of them feel you. They don't know why being around you makes them rethink their lives, their relationships, their routines. But you do. It's because your soul doesn't settle for superficial. You walk in purpose, and it challenges those still clinging to performance. You didn't come to fit in. You came to awaken. And when depth walks into a shallow room, ripples are inevitable. You weren't just shaped by pressure, you were refined by it. While others bent under the weight of life, you absorbed the lessons, stood taller, and carried on with silent strength. You didn't just make it through the fire, you became it. There's a calm in your walk, a steadiness in your presence that tells a story without needing words. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They sense the gravity in your silence, the grace in your survival. You are proof that peace can live on the other side of pain, and that's what makes you magnetic. Not that you avoided hardship, but that nothing could keep you down. Your resilience is quiet, but it's unshakable. And those who once doubted you now watch in awe, not just because you endured, but because you've become unstoppable. They expected anger. They expected revenge. But you chose something far more powerful: peace. Forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. You realized holding on to bitterness only chained you to the pain they caused. So, you let go, not for them, but for you. Because your healing mattered more than their apology. You didn't win by fighting back, you won by rising above. And that's what confuses them most. You didn't return fire, you returned to yourself. In choosing peace over pride, you reclaimed your power in full. Now their actions no longer define you. The freedom you walk in does. They wanted to see you broken, but instead they now see you glowing. Untouchable, unbothered, unmoved. Your forgiveness disrupted the cycle. It ended the war. And in doing so, you became the revolution they never saw coming. While the world runs after applause and attention, you chose something deeper: purpose. While others shape themselves to fit the moment, you move with timeless intention. You don't follow trends, you follow truth. And that's why your presence feels different. It's not loud, but it lingers. It doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be aligned. And the irony? The more you ignore the crowd, the more magnetic you become. Because people are drawn to what's real, even if they don't know how to name it. Your consistency speaks louder than applause. Your clarity cuts through the noise. And as others burn out chasing visibility, you rise quietly, anchored, focused, unstoppable. You didn't choose the easy path. You chose the right one. And in doing so, you became not just someone to watch, but someone to follow. You've spent too long trying to shrink into spaces that couldn't hold your light. But now you see it clearly. You were never created to blend in. You were shaped by fire, refined by silence, and called to rise in ways others can't comprehend. This journey was never about acceptance. It was about alignment. And now every step you take in truth makes your presence louder, your purpose sharper, your glow undeniable. You're not just different, you're designed. And the world is finally catching up to what heaven already knew. You were born to stand out. There's something extraordinary, almost celestial, about being in the presence of a chosen one. You can feel it before they speak, before they smile, even before they look your way. It's not about charisma or charm. It's about energy. Their presence is a balm to wounded spirits. Their silence speaks volumes, and their gaze penetrates to the soul's deepest corners. They don't demand attention. They command peace. These are the people who love deeply without condition, who forgive even when forgiveness isn't asked for, who bring healing just by existing. But behind their grace lies a quiet fire. a storm held back by discipline, a spiritual strength hidden behind soft eyes and kind words. Because when a chosen one is provoked, betrayed, or spiritually violated, they do not simply react, they awaken. And what awakens is not ordinary emotion. It is something sacred, something ancient, a divine judgment that reshapes everything around it. Today we explore 8 profound reasons why chosen ones are the kindest souls you will ever meet, but also the most dangerous when provoked. Before beginning the video, let's subscribe, like this video, and stay with me until the end of this message, and you will understand why you were led here. This is your moment. 1. Their healing energy can warm you or burn you. There is something unmistakably sacred about the presence of a chosen one. It's not something you can always explain with words, it's something you feel. Their energy is soft yet powerful, gentle yet transformative. When they walk into a space, the atmosphere shifts. Tension eases, hearts soften. Without even trying, they bring comfort to the broken and calm to the restless. Their very presence feels like a breath of fresh air after a long storm. But their healing isn't passive. It's not simply about being nice. The peace they carry is the result of deep spiritual refinement. They've been through fire, and they carry light that heals because they've known darkness intimately. Being near them often feels like emotional cleansing, like your spirit is finally being held, seen, and restored. However, that same light that soothes can also confront. It exposes. It burns away illusions. Because true healing isn't just about comfort. It's about truth. The energy they carry doesn't just ease your pain. It brings everything hidden into the light. The lies you tell yourself, the masks you wear, the shadows you hide, nothing can stay buried in their presence. Many mistake this light for vulnerability, assuming chosen ones can be manipulated or taken advantage of. But make no mistake, their gentleness is not weakness. Their kindness is not a lack of awareness. The same healing energy that lifts others can also become a refining fire when faced with dishonesty, ego, or malice. Being loved by a chosen one is a gift, but if you betray that love, you'll be exposed by the truth they carry. And when their light turns toward you, anything fake or dishonest won't be able to hide. 2. Their patience isn't passive, it's divine discipline. At first glance, the patience of a chosen one might seem like indifference. They don't rush to correct, argue, or confront. They remain quiet even when wronged. But don't mistake their stillness for apathy. It is anything but passive. Their patience is intentional. It is the product of inner strength and spiritual clarity. Chosen ones understand the sacred rhythm of time. They know that not every lesson is taught with words, and not every battle is won through confrontation. They observe, they wait, and they allow others the space to grow, to come into alignment, to choose truth. Even when they are fully aware of betrayal or deceit, they do not act impulsively. Instead, they hold space for transformation, hoping the other person might awaken before it's too late. But their patience has a limit. It is not eternal. When that silent grace shifts, when the calm turns to quiet withdrawal, it is not a reaction of anger, but a sign that divine timing has reached its end. Their stillness becomes a signal. The season of mercy is closing. And when they do move, it's never for revenge. It's purpose-driven. They don't need to prove anything. They know who they are. Their decision to step back is often the most powerful message they'll ever send. In the end, their patience isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's discipline. And when they finally act, the impact is undeniable, because it's not just them moving, it's the divine moving through them. 3. When they snap, it's not anger, it's divine judgment. Chosen ones are not easily angered. Their hearts are anchored in deep emotional maturity, and their spirits are attuned to peace. They have endured more than most, often carrying wounds in silence and forgiving long before apologies are offered. But when their boundaries are crossed too many times, when their grace is taken for granted and their soul repeatedly violated, what rises in them is not ordinary anger. It's something sacred, something weighty. Their outburst, if it comes, is not impulsive. It is prophetic. It is not fueled by ego, but by alignment with divine truth. In those rare moments when they finally speak out, their words pierce deeper than any weapon. They don't just express pain, they unveil it. They don't shout to be heard, they speak to awaken. When a chosen one reaches their limit, their words carry deep truth. They're not trying to hurt anyone, they're simply speaking what can no longer be hidden. And when that truth comes out, it doesn't just reveal the pain, it pushes change. 4. They protect everyone, including themselves. Chosen ones carry a natural instinct to protect. Chosen ones carry a natural instinct to protect. They are the quiet guardians in a noisy world, the ones who step in when others step back. They shield the broken, defend the innocent, and stand firm against injustice without ever needing recognition. Their love is not passive, it is protective, rooted in a sacred calling to bring peace where there is pain and strength where there is fear. But what many overlook is this: the same fierce devotion they offer others, they also extend to themselves. Chosen ones do not abandon their own spirit for the sake of pleasing others. They are deeply aware of their energy, their peace, and the sacredness of their inner space. When someone repeatedly disrespects their boundaries or disrupts their spiritual alignment, they won't argue, they will quietly step away. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. They know that protection isn't just about defending others from harm, it's also about honoring their own worth. The same strength they use to shield others becomes the sword they use to guard their own soul, because a chosen one understands. If their light is to keep shining for the world, they must never let it be dimmed by those who do not value it. 5. Their silence is louder than screaming and far more destructive. When deeply hurt or betrayed, chosen ones don't lash out. They don't argue, plead, or seek to be understood. Instead, they retreat into silence, and that silence is far more powerful than any outburst could ever be. Because their silence speaks. It speaks of boundaries crossed, of trust broken, of grace that has finally run its course. It doesn't scream. It echoes. And in its echo is a mirror that forces others to confront what their presence once protected. The peace that followed them disappears, and what's left is the unrest that had always been there, now exposed. Chosen ones don't need to raise their voice to make a statement. Their absence is the statement. The warmth they brought, the calm they carried, the invisible safety they offered, it all leaves with them. And suddenly, everything starts to unravel. They do not withdraw to punish. They withdraw to preserve. And in doing so, they allow truth, consequence, and divine justice to take over. Their silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It is the final sacred boundary. When they go quiet, it's not because they've given up. It's because they've already said all that needed to be said, without speaking a single word. 6. Their intuition is a spiritual weapon chosen. Ones don't just sense what others overlook, they see it. Their intuition is not guesswork. It's spiritual insight sharpened through experience, prayer, and deep inner alignment. They read energy the way others read facial expressions. They feel what's not being said, and they discern the truth behind even the most polished lies. They may remain quiet, choosing not to confront immediately. But don't confuse their silence for ignorance. They know more than they let on. In moments of tension or deceit, they pick up on the unspoken, the slight shifts in tone, the masked intentions, the subtle manipulations. It's as if their soul is wired to detect truth beneath layers of disguise, and when the time comes to speak, they do so with clarity and calm, but their words land with force. They don't argue or attack, they reveal. With just a few sentences, they can expose what others have tried to bury, even from themselves. Not to shame, but to awaken. This is why toxic people feel uneasy around them. It's not fear of confrontation, it's fear of exposure. Because to stand before a chosen one is to stand before truth itself. And when truth becomes a weapon, it cuts straight to the soul. 7. Their mercy is vast, but not infinite. The heart of a chosen one beats with compassion. They are among the first to forgive, the last to walk away, and often the only ones praying for the very people who hurt them. They see the pain beneath the behavior, the wound behind the betrayal. Their love is patient, and their mercy runs deep. But even divine patience has its limit. Chosen ones may offer chance after chance, not out of naivety, but because they believe in healing. They hope for redemption. They give people room to grow, not because they're blind, but because they know that true change takes time. Yet, there comes a moment when mercy is no longer alignment. It becomes self-betrayal. And when that threshold is crossed, something shifts. Quietly, firmly, without drama. They don't slam doors. They close them gently, but for good. And when they step away, so does the spiritual covering they carried. The peace, the prayers, the unseen protection, all lifted. What once shielded someone from the weight of consequence is suddenly gone. That's when people realize they weren't just dealing with a kind person. They were held by someone spiritually sent. And when that covering lifts, life teaches what grace once softened. 8. Their presence changes the atmosphere. For better or worse. A chosen one doesn't just enter a room, they shift it. Their energy is not loud or boastful, but it's undeniably powerful. Without saying a word, they bring stillness to chaos, calm to tension, and light to confusion. People may not understand why they suddenly feel more at peace or more open, but it's the spiritual frequency they carry. They are vessels of divine energy, and that energy brings balance, order, and unseen protection. Conversations become clearer. Emotions settle. Hearts open. The atmosphere simply feels better. But that same presence, when provoked or unsettled, can have the opposite effect. When their peace is disturbed, the harmony around them begins to fracture. The room may feel heavier, conversation may stall, and people grow uneasy without knowing why. It's not just emotion, it's spirit. Their soul is so attuned that any spiritual dissonance sends ripples through the environment. This is why even their silence carries weight. Their energy speaks louder than their voice ever could. To be in their presence is to feel something sacred, whether comforting or confronting. Because a chosen one doesn't just live in the world, they shift the very atmosphere around them. To encounter a chosen one is to stand in the presence of something both tender and unshakable. Their kindness is not weakness, it is wisdom wrapped in grace. Their silence holds more truth than 1,000 words, and their patience is a reflection of divine timing, not hesitation. They are healers, protectors, truth-tellers, quiet forces of transformation sent not to dominate but to awaken. But never mistake their gentleness for fragility. Beneath their compassion lies sacred fire, and when provoked beyond their spiritual threshold, that fire rises, not to destroy, but to reveal, not to condemn, but to correct. So honor the chosen ones in your life. Their presence is not ordinary, it is purposeful, and if you are one, this is your reminder. Your light is powerful, your grace is rare, and the strength you carry in silence is not only seen by heaven, it is protected by it. Walk softly, but never forget the fire you carry. There are no accidents in the divine plan. If this message found its way to you, it's not because of an algorithm. It's because destiny has a way of sending signals when your soul is ready to awaken. You didn't stumble across this. You were summoned. There's a deep and ancient truth written into the very fabric of the universe. Nothing powerful is born without pressure, and nothing chosen walks through life without resistance. The more light you carry, the more shadows you attract. But not everyone survives that contrast. You did. And now you're here, not broken, but battle-tested, not lost, but chosen. Let's begin this journey together. It's not just a message, it's a reflection of everything you've been feeling but couldn't put into words. From the earliest moments of your journey, something about you is different. You didn't fit in, and no matter how hard you tried, blending into the background never felt natural. That's because you weren't made to fade into the crowd. You weren't crafted for mediocrity. You were never ordinary. You've always carried something deeper, something heavier, a calling, a presence, a light that can't be easily ignored. And while others may have coasted through life, you've felt the weight of being different. But what you once saw as a burden was, in truth, a sacred signature of purpose. Ordinary lives don't shake atmospheres. Ordinary hearts don't carry the kind of fire that shifts generations. But you do. That's why life hasn't always been kind. Because the chosen path is rarely the easy one. It's the road carved through resistance, through rejection, and through refinement. And while some seem to rise with applause, your growth came in silence. Alone. In rooms where no one clapped, but heaven took notice. And as you continued to grow into your calling, something else began to happen. People started to leave. You held on with everything you had. You poured your love, your energy, your loyalty into people who couldn't see your worth. You chased doors that slammed shut, cried over opportunities that slipped through your hands, and wondered if the losses meant you weren't enough. But here's the truth. What left your life was never meant to stay. That relationship you gave your heart to, it couldn't carry your future. That opportunity you lost sleep over, it would have misaligned your destiny. Sometimes rejection is not cruelty, it's compassion in disguise. It's divine interference, saving you from what your heart wanted but your soul didn't need. You see, when you're chosen, not everyone can walk with you. Your future demands clarity, and clarity requires separation. So the exits you thought were your downfall were actually your deliverance. The universe heard conversations behind closed doors you never did. It saw the hidden motives, the quiet jealousy, the subtle sabotage, and it removed what you didn't have the strength to let go of. Let them go. Let what was never yours fall away without guilt. Because what's coming will recognize you instantly. You won't need to prove, to beg, or to break yourself to fit. The ones who are meant to be in your life won't be confused by your value. And that's exactly why so many couldn't get close to you, why certain relationships couldn't last, why you often felt like you were on the outside looking in. It's not because you were broken, it's because you are sacred. What is sacred must be protected. A diamond isn't placed on the sidewalk for anyone to grab. It's guarded, kept safe, cherished. And that's how heaven views you. When people mishandled you, it wasn't because you were too much. It was because they didn't have the capacity to honor you. They approached your spirit with dirty hands, not realizing the purity of what they were touching. And each time someone tried to use you, abuse you, or reduce you, life didn't punish them immediately, but it did take notes. The more sacred your purpose, the more protection you need. You weren't being left out. You were being guarded. While others focused on looking good, you were being prepared for something greater. That's why some people had to leave. It wasn't rejection, it was protection. No, your journey hasn't been easy. But truthfully, it's the pain that shaped your strength and built the fire inside you. You asked, why did it hurt so much? But the real question is, how else would the fire in you be forged? The heartbreaks, betrayals, lonely nights, and unanswered prayers, they weren't random. They were your refining fire. Because when God crowns a person, He first tests their heart. When the universe is preparing someone to lead, it puts them through seasons that break their ego, sharpen their vision, and strip away everything fake. You didn't suffer because you were weak. You suffered because strength was being carved into you. You didn't fall apart, you fell into place. Each crack in your heart became a channel for your light to shine through. Every wound gave birth to wisdom. And now, you don't just carry a message, you are the message. A living testimony that pressure doesn't destroy the chosen, it prepares them. So if you felt pain, if you felt like everything was falling apart, know this: it wasn't. It was falling into divine alignment. Can you feel it? That silent pull, that quiet but undeniable sense that something is changing, not just around you, but within you. It's not anxiety. It's not coincidence. It's alignment. You are standing at the edge of something monumental, and the ground beneath you is shifting. But this transformation didn't happen overnight. It's been building. Slowly, silently, sacredly. Every tear you cried in private, every setback you thought would break you, every night you whispered, "Why does it have to be this hard?" It was part of a greater story being written in the unseen. You see, the shift always begins in silence, because what's truly powerful never needs to announce itself. It simply arrives, ready. And this quiet rising, explains why the attacks have intensified. Because you don't walk like everyone else. You don't chase attention, yet somehow it finds you. You move with humility, but your presence speaks louder than pride ever could. That's what the Daniel anointing looks like. It's not about being loud. It's about being aligned. Daniel wasn't flashy, but even kings took notice. And so did the snakes. The same favor that promotes you is often the very thing that provokes others. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your peace reveals their chaos. And your obedience? It's unsettling to a world obsessed with shortcuts and image. You've been misunderstood, watched, not with admiration, but with intimidation. But hear this: their opinions don't define your purpose. Their envy doesn't disqualify your anointing. And their resistance? It's just proof that you're rising in the spirit before it's visible in the physical. Chosen ones don't need validation from crowds. They carry confirmation from above. Stop trying to make yourself smaller so others feel more comfortable. You were never meant to be liked by everyone. That's not your assignment. You were meant to leave a mark so undeniable it echoes long after you've left the room. And sometimes, that kind of presence doesn't attract applause. It attracts resistance. Your light makes people confront the darkness they've ignored. Your truth cuts through illusions others depend on to survive. So don't be surprised when your elevation causes people to distance themselves. They're not avoiding you. They're avoiding what your growth reveals about them. And that's okay, because you weren't built to be palatable. You were built to be powerful. Let them talk. Let them question. Let them misunderstand. Your worth doesn't shrink because someone else can't see it. The roar of your purpose is too loud to be silenced by their whispers. You've spent too much time trying to explain yourself to people who were never supposed to understand you. You see what others miss. You sense shifts in rooms others walk through blindly. You notice unspoken truths, feel unseen motives, and carry insight that doesn't come from books. It comes from divine download. That's not paranoia. That's precision. And the reason you've often felt out of place in surface-level spaces is because your depth intimidates shallow minds. But you don't have to keep explaining your moves, your decisions, or your silence. Chosen ones operate by spiritual radar, not public opinion. You were given a vision not everyone was meant to see, so stop translating it into a language they refuse to learn. Your obedience is enough. Your discernment is protection. And your distance? It's often the clearest sign of wisdom. You may look at others who seem more skilled, more connected, more applauded, and wonder, why not me? But what you don't see is that while talent might open doors, only obedience keeps them open. Obedience is showing up when you're tired. It's trusting the process when nothing makes sense. It's staying humble in silence when your heart screams for recognition. And that, right there, is what separates the chosen from the called. The world celebrates talent, but heaven honors obedience. Your breakthrough won't come because you were the loudest or the most polished. It'll come because you listened, because you waited, because you stayed true when no one was watching. And in a world that idolizes speed, your quiet consistency has made you unstoppable. There's a sacred silence that often follows the seasons of struggle, a quiet stretch of time where nothing seems to move, nothing seems to break through, and you wonder if all your effort was in vain. But silence does not mean stagnation. Don't let the stillness fool you. The quiet doesn't mean you're being forgotten. It means you're being formed. Warriors aren't built in the spotlight. They're sharpened in the shadows. And you, chosen one, have been hidden not to be overlooked, but to be preserved for the precise moment heaven declares, now. In this silent space, your roots have grown deep. Your strength has been forged far away from applause. And just when it seems like nothing is happening, that's when everything is happening. Stillness is not your enemy, it's your strategy. And just as you're growing in the silence, the favor on your life is becoming louder. But here's the part the world won't understand. Favor was never meant to be fair. It doesn't follow rules or respect order. It chooses the faithful over the flashy, the obedient over the obvious. So when you rise, they'll call it luck. They'll say it's undeserved. But they didn't see the price you paid in private. They weren't there for the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They didn't witness the storms you survived in silence. So let them whisper. Let them wonder. Favor isn't supposed to make sense. It's meant to make history. And now, the shift is no longer a distant promise. It's here. The atmosphere is changing. The alignment is happening. That surge you've felt in your spirit, it's not just emotion. It's preparation. This isn't business as usual. This is divine movement. The door you've been praying for isn't just opening, it's swinging wide. But it won't wait for hesitation. This is a suddenly season. The question isn't, will it happen? It's, are you ready? Because when the shift calls your name, the chosen don't chase, they rise. You were never random. You were always marked. Everything they used to bury you only proved how fireproof you are. Every detour, every disappointment, every dark night, none of it was in vain. Now, you are stronger, sharper, clearer, and the shift isn't just coming, it's already begun. This is your announcement, your alignment, your activation. You were not just chosen, you were made unstoppable. If this message spoke to your soul, thank you for sharing this moment with us. Your presence here matters. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss what's divinely meant for you. And if you're ready to step fully into your purpose, drop "I'm ready" in the comments. Your journey is just beginning. Let's rise together. It's a quiet war, a hidden conflict that wages not in the streets but in hearts. It lingers behind the smiles of the faithful, behind lifted hands in worship, behind passionate sermons and daily devotions. It is the battle with lust, a struggle not limited to the lost or the lukewarm, but one that grips even the most devout, the most committed, the most chosen. In the spiritual realm, there are those marked by God, chosen vessels set apart for divine purpose. Yet many of them carry a burden they dare not speak aloud. They wrestle with thoughts they wish they didn't have. They wage war against temptations that seem relentless, deceptive, and shameful. Why? Why would those filled with the Spirit of God feel torn in this way? This is not a sign of weakness, nor is it an indication of failure. It is not proof that someone is less spiritual or unworthy of God's call. Rather, it is often a sign of something greater, a sacred calling, a spiritual awakening, a life in transformation. This message seeks to uncover the 5 reasons why God's chosen silently struggle with lust, and how understanding these truths can lead to healing, power, and ultimate victory. Reason 1. A new creation faces an old war. When someone gives their life to Christ and becomes born again, a divine transformation takes place. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 5:17, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here." This is more than a spiritual metaphor. It is the beginning of a brand new identity. The heart changes. The desires shift. There's a new hunger for righteousness, a new love for the things of God, and a growing hatred for sin. Yet with this new life comes a paradox that catches many believers off guard. Even as a new creation, the believer often finds themselves in an intense internal struggle, especially when it comes to lust. Why does this happen? Shouldn't transformation erase old temptations? The answer lies in the very nature of spiritual rebirth. Becoming a new creation in Christ doesn't mean the old world vanishes. It means a new war begins. Before salvation, sin ruled unchecked. Lust was not battled but embraced. There was no conviction, no internal resistance. The desires of the flesh were followed without remorse, often disguised as natural or even desirable. But once the Holy Spirit takes residence in the believer's heart, everything changes. Suddenly, there is a new voice, a holy voice, whispering, convicting, and reminding the believer of their identity in Christ. Lust, which once brought pleasure, now brings sorrow. What was once welcomed is now resisted. This is not a sign of spiritual failure. It is, in fact, a sign of spiritual life. The struggle itself is proof that something within has shifted. It is more than just fleeting desire. It is a spiritual warfare between the renewed soul and the lingering impulses of the flesh. This constant tension can leave many feeling confused and even ashamed. They wonder, if I truly belong to God, why do these desires still arise? But this turmoil is not a sign of failure. It is a clear indication that salvation has taken root. The Holy Spirit is actively at work, convicting the heart, pulling it away from spiritual compromise, and leading it toward a life of holiness and obedience. This battle is not meant to discourage, but to awaken. It is a call to lean into grace, to grow in discipline, and to fight with the strength that only Christ can provide. Romans 8:13 encourages us, "If by the Spirit you put to death the misdeeds of the body, you will live." You are not weak because you struggle. You are alive because you do. Temptation is not a sign of defeat, and the presence of lust is not proof that you are still chained. On the contrary, the very pain you feel when facing temptation is evidence that the Spirit of God is transforming your desires. You are a new creation, yes, but that new creation must now learn to stand in victory over an old enemy. Reason 2. The flesh was never redeemed. One of the greatest misunderstandings in the walk of faith is the assumption that salvation instantly erases all sinful desires. Many believers, especially new ones, find themselves disillusioned and ashamed when they realize that even after accepting Christ, the pull of lust, temptation, and past sin still lingers. But here's a powerful truth that brings both clarity and comfort. When your spirit is reborn in Christ, your flesh is not. While your soul experiences a miraculous transformation, your physical body and its appetites remain unchanged. The same body that once craved sin still remembers those cravings, and it does not automatically forget the pleasures it once indulged in. This is why the Apostle Paul speaks so candidly in Galatians 5:17, saying, "For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other." This verse isn't just a theological statement. It describes a daily reality for every believer. The Spirit longs for righteousness, intimacy with God, and purity. But the flesh pulls in the opposite direction, toward comfort, gratification, and self-indulgence. The war is real, and it is relentless. Even Paul, one of the greatest champions of the faith, openly admitted to this struggle in Romans 7. He described a tension so intense that he often found himself doing what he hated, even while desiring to do good. This internal battle is not a mark of spiritual weakness. It is the very evidence of God's Spirit dwelling inside. Before salvation, there was no struggle. Sin ruled freely. But now, as a new creation, the believer is no longer at peace with sin. Instead, there is resistance, conflict, and the yearning to overcome. Yet many believers mistake this war for failure. They think, if I still struggle, maybe I was never truly saved. But that is a lie from the enemy. Satan wants the chosen to believe that the presence of temptation is proof of disqualification. In truth, it's quite the opposite. The conflict proves that your heart has changed. It proves that the Holy Spirit is at work, reshaping your will and exposing what must be surrendered. This is why the Bible commands us to walk in the Spirit, because walking in the flesh leads only to sin. It is a daily choice, a discipline, not a one-time victory. We must train ourselves, renew our minds, and allow the Spirit to guide our every thought and action. Victory over lust and fleshly desires does not come from trying harder, but from yielding deeper, from surrendering fully to God's presence, day by day. So if you find yourself in this fight, know this: you are not alone, and you are not broken. You are in the process of sanctification. You are becoming who God has already declared you to be. The flesh may still cry out, but the Spirit within you is stronger. And by walking with Him, step by step, you will overcome. Reason 3. Satan specifically targets the chosen. There's a reason why some believers feel as though they're under constant spiritual attack, why temptations seem more intense, why battles with sin, especially lust, feel relentless. Because those who are chosen by God, those marked with a divine calling, carry a weight in the spiritual realm that the enemy cannot ignore. Satan does not waste his energy on those already walking in darkness. Instead, he wages war against those who carry light. He aims his fiercest weapons at those who pose the greatest threat to his kingdom. Jesus made this reality clear when he spoke to Peter in Luke 22:31-32, saying, "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." Notice the intentionality of the enemy. He asked to sift. That word sift means to shake violently, to test thoroughly. Satan wasn't asking to casually tempt Peter. He wanted to break him. Why? Because Peter was chosen. Peter carried a future that would help shape the early church. And the enemy knew that if he could bring Peter down, he could disrupt a part of God's plan. This same truth applies today. If you are walking with God, if your life has been surrendered to His will, if you are growing in grace and bearing spiritual fruit, then you are a threat. One of Satan's most effective weapons against the chosen is lust. Why? Because it attacks not just the body, but the soul. It brings with it shame, secrecy, and a sense of unworthiness. If the enemy can trap a believer in cycles of lust, he can hinder their confidence, weaken their prayer life, and create distance between them and their calling. And Satan doesn't fight fair. He's strategic. He studies patterns, past failures, and vulnerabilities. He uses subtle seductions, an image, a memory, a casual conversation, to plant seeds of temptation. He uses modern tools like social media, entertainment, and even relationships to bait believers into compromise. He crafts a culture where sin is normalized, where boundaries are blurred, and where purity is mocked. The enemy's goal isn't just to tempt, it's to derail destinies. This is why Scripture constantly reminds us to stay alert. 1 Peter 5:8 warns, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." The chosen cannot afford to be spiritually passive. This battle requires more than good intentions. It demands spiritual armor, prayer, fasting, time in God's Word, accountability. These aren't optional disciplines. They are lifelines in a war for the soul. If you've been under attack, if you've felt the sting of temptation more intensely since surrendering your life to Christ, take heart. It's not because you're weak, it's because you're valuable. Satan attacks what he fears, and he fears the chosen because he knows the impact they're destined to make when they walk in full surrender to God. Reason 4. The world is designed to feed the flesh. We live in a world that is not neutral. It is actively, intentionally designed to appeal to the desires of the flesh. From every corner of culture, media, music, entertainment, fashion, advertising, and social platforms, the world is constantly offering images, messages and experiences that stir up cravings in the human heart. And these are not accidental or harmless. They are deliberate strategies from the enemy, calculated to entice believers away from spiritual truth and draw them into compromise. Scripture lays it out plainly in 1 John 2:16. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The very system of this world is constructed to normalize what God calls sin. It glorifies immorality and mocks holiness. It turns temptation into entertainment and wraps darkness in dazzling lights. What once caused shame is now celebrated, and what God calls pure is often dismissed as outdated or restrictive. This cultural conditioning creates a dangerous spiritual atmosphere where lust can easily take root, sometimes subtly, without us even realizing it. Every day, believers are exposed to countless messages that chip away at their spiritual sensitivity. A passing scene in a movie, a suggestive post on social media, a catchy lyric with destructive undertones. All of it feeds the flesh while weakening the spirit. And the more we consume, the more we become desensitized. What once disturbed us no longer does. What once grieved our hearts now feels normal. This is the slow drift the enemy hopes for. Not an obvious fall, but a quiet erosion of conviction. This is why Proverbs 4:23 warns us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The heart is shaped by what the eyes see and the ears hear. Jesus emphasized this truth in Matthew 6:22, declaring, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light." What we choose to look at and focus on either fuels the fire of lust or strengthens the light of purity within us. In today's digital age, lust is not hard to find. It's only a click away. Phones, tablets, and screens meant to connect us with loved ones, and knowledge are often used as portals for temptation. Platforms that started as tools for community have become breeding grounds for impurity. It takes more than casual effort to remain pure in this kind of environment. It takes intentional action. We must be wise and discerning about what we allow into our minds. Remaining spiritually strong means drawing clear boundaries, avoiding entertainment that glorifies sin, limiting social media exposure, and filling our hearts with things that honor God. Romans 13:14 urges us to put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh. Purity isn't accidental, it's a pursuit. And in a world designed to feed the flesh, those who are chosen must walk differently, seeing through the illusion and choosing the light. Reason 5. Lust becomes a stronghold. Through habit. Lust is not always loud or sudden. Often it creeps in quietly, gaining strength over time until it becomes something far more dangerous than a fleeting temptation. It becomes a stronghold. A stronghold is more than a moment of weakness. It's a deeply embedded pattern of thought and behavior that exerts power over a person's life. What begins as a glance, a thought, or a seemingly harmless indulgence can evolve into a spiritual fortress that resists conviction and enslaves the heart. And lust, more than many sins, has the potential to take deep root through repetition and secrecy. Romans 6:12 warns us, "Therefore do not let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey its evil desires." The language here is telling, sin can reign. It can establish dominance. And when lust is allowed to grow unchecked, through pornography, inappropriate relationships, sexual fantasy, or even just continual internal compromise, it carves out a throne in the soul. The more it is fed, the stronger it becomes. And over time, it doesn't just influence thoughts, it begins to shape identity. Many believers fall into despair at this stage, wondering how they can love God and still feel so bound. The guilt is suffocating. The shame makes them silent, and the silence allows the sin to grow. But here's the truth that brings hope. Even the strongest stronghold can be torn down by the power of God. No habit, no cycle, no temptation is greater than His grace. But breaking free requires more than remorse. It demands intentional, spirit-led warfare. Overcoming lust means recognizing it for what it truly is. Not just a bad habit, but a spiritual battle that must be fought, with divine weapons. 2 Corinthians 10:4 reminds us, "The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds." That power comes through the Word of God, through prayer, through fasting, and through surrender. It comes through confessing the struggle, not hiding it, through accountability, not isolation, through setting boundaries, not making excuses. Jesus used a powerful metaphor in Matthew 5:29, saying, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away." Of course, he wasn't commanding self-harm. He was emphasizing the urgency of radical action. If something leads you into sin, don't flirt with it. Cut it off. Delete the app. End the conversation. Change the routine. Whatever opens the door to lust must be shut with boldness and finality. Freedom is not out of reach, but it does require perseverance and daily dependence on the Holy Spirit. Psalm 119:11 declares, "I have hidden your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you." The more we fill ourselves with truth, the less room there is for deception. Lust may form a stronghold through habit, but by God's grace, that stronghold can be broken, brick by brick, until what once enslaved you becomes a testimony of deliverance and restoration. If you find yourself in a battle with lust, feeling weighed down by the tension between your spirit and your flesh, take heart. You are not alone, and you are not beyond hope. The very struggle you're facing is not a sign of defeat, but a sign of life. It's proof that God's Spirit is within you, that your heart is no longer comfortable with compromise, and that you are being transformed day by day into the image of Christ. This journey is not easy. The enemy is persistent, the world is loud, and the flesh is stubborn. But the good news is this: you are not fighting alone. God has already equipped you with everything you need to overcome. Through His Word, through prayer, through His Spirit, and through the support of a faithful community, you can walk in purity and power. So if you're struggling, don't give up. Don't let shame silence you. Don't believe the lie that you are too broken to be used by God. Instead, lift your eyes, stand firm, and continue to fight the good fight of faith, because you are chosen. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. If this message encouraged your heart, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel for more Bible-based content designed to inspire, uplift, and strengthen your walk with Christ. There's a powerful story unfolding in your life, and we're honored to walk this journey with you. Until next time, stay strong in the Lord, stay rooted in His Word, and remember, though the struggle is real, so is the victory. God bless you. If you're hearing this right now, let me assure you, it's not an accident. You didn't stumble upon this message by chance. You were drawn by divine alignment. Some of you have been walking through shadows, feeling rejected, betrayed, and misunderstood. You've cried silent tears, wrestled with questions no one knew you carried. And yet, deep within, your spirit has been whispering, there's more to this, something deeper, something eternal. This is your awakening. This is your confirmation. Today, the heavens are speaking, loud and clear. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. Let that truth take root, because from this moment forward, your perspective will shift, your purpose will ignite, and your story will never be the same. You've asked the questions no one else hears, the ones whispered through sleepless nights and tear-stained prayers. Why did they walk away? Why did they turn on me when all I gave was love? You've replayed the moments, searching for answers, wondering if the heartbreak you endured was somehow your fault. But let this truth settle in your spirit. The pain you felt is not proof of your failure. It's confirmation of your calling. The rejection, the silence, the betrayal, they weren't random acts. They were spiritual reactions to the purpose you carry. The enemy wasn't responding to your flaws. He was reacting to your fire. From the very beginning, you were marked by heaven, set apart for something greater. Even before you knew who you were, darkness recognized your light. That's why the battle started early. That's why, in rooms where others felt at ease, you felt like a stranger. That's why people left. Not because you were unlovable, but because your presence made their hidden wounds uncomfortable. You weren't born to blend in. You were never meant to live a life of quiet conformity. You were crafted to carry glory, to disturb darkness, and to awaken what's divine in a sleeping world. That kind of calling attracts warfare. That kind of light stirs resistance. So don't mistake your pain for punishment. It's been the forge that shaped your resilience. The very wounds that threatened to crush you are now the testimony that proves you are chosen. You were not abandoned. You were distinguished. And the pain you carry? It's not a burden of shame, but a sacred sign that heaven has entrusted you with something extraordinary. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt resistance, an unspoken tension that had nothing to do with what you said or did? You were kind. You were genuine. Yet somehow, your presence unsettled the atmosphere. Here's why. You carry light, and light always disrupts darkness. You didn't enter that space with judgment. You didn't come to expose or shame anyone. You simply showed up as yourself, a child of God, filled with His Spirit and marked with His presence. But the moment your light entered, something shifted. Things long hidden were suddenly visible. Attitudes once accepted became uncomfortable. The compromise, the bitterness, the pain, they all rose to the surface. And rather than embrace the light, many chose to resist it. It wasn't you they were rejecting. It was the conviction your light brought. Your purity revealed their compromise. Your truth disturbed their deception. Your fire made their apathy obvious. This is why some people pull away, why conversations grow cold, why friendships suddenly fade. Because your light exposed what they were not ready to confront. Jesus said it plainly in John 3:19. Light has come into the world, but people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. That wasn't just a reflection of His time. It's a reflection of what every believer carrying light will encounter. So don't shrink back. Don't dim your light to make others feel more comfortable in their darkness. The resistance isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's confirmation that you're walking in truth. When you walk in the Spirit, your very existence becomes a mirror. And not everyone is ready to face what that reflection reveals. But still, keep shining. Because where light is, darkness cannot remain. There's a pattern to the pain you've endured, a divine thread that runs through the stories of those God has chosen throughout history. And one of the clearest examples of this is found in the life of Joseph. Joseph didn't seek attention. He didn't ask to be envied. He simply carried something special, a dream from God, a glimpse of destiny, and that dream made others uncomfortable. He was favored, gifted, and set apart. Yet what did it bring him? Rejection, betrayal, isolation. His own brothers, the ones who should have loved and protected him, turned against him. Not because he wronged them, but because they couldn't handle what he carried. Genesis 37:4 tells us that, when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. It wasn't his actions, it was his anointing. It was his light that revealed their insecurity, his vision that exposed their lack of it. Just like Joseph, you've been misunderstood. You've been pushed aside, not because you failed, but because your calling revealed what others weren't ready to face in themselves. And instead of dealing with their own hearts, they projected their pain onto you. But here's what they didn't know. The pit was part of the process. Every moment of betrayal was a stepping stone toward Joseph's destiny, and the same is true for you. What seemed like a setback was really a setup. What they meant to bury you with, God is using to elevate you. Your pain isn't random, it's patterned. It follows the same thread of every chosen one before you. And just like Joseph, you will rise, not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. There are moments in life when the pain of someone walking away feels unbearable. You replay the conversations, relive the memories, and wrestle with confusion. Why did they leave? Why did they stop caring? After all I gave, why wasn't it enough? But what if their absence isn't a punishment? What if it's protection? You see, not every rejection is from the enemy. Sometimes it's the hand of God gently removing what can no longer go with you. He saw what you couldn't see. He heard the silent jealousy, the unspoken doubts, the wavering loyalty. And when the time was right, he stepped in. Not to hurt you, but to free you. It wasn't just that they left. It was that God allowed it. Because the next level of your calling requires purity of heart, clarity of purpose, and alignment with people who can carry the weight of your destiny. Psalm 118 verse 22 declares, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. What others dismissed, God is building on. The very person they overlooked, you, is the one God has chosen to elevate. So don't chase after what God has released. Don't grieve over doors that were divinely closed. That rejection wasn't meant to define you. It was designed to redirect you. Where you're going, not everyone can follow. And that's okay, because what God is preparing for you requires a new circle, a new focus, a new level of faith. Their departure wasn't your defeat. It was your deliverance. Rejection didn't disqualify you. It positioned you. And now, you are free to step forward, unhindered and fully aligned with heaven's plan. One of the hardest truths to accept is that betrayal often comes from the ones closest to us. Not from strangers, not from enemies, but from those who sat at our table, shared our laughter, and held our trust. Even Jesus experienced this. Among the 12 men he chose, walked with, and poured his heart into, there was Judas, the one who would betray him, and not with a weapon, not with a public accusation, but with a kiss. Luke 22:48 records Jesus saying, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" A kiss, an act of affection, used as a mask for deception. It's a painful reminder that not all betrayal looks like hostility. Sometimes it comes wrapped in familiarity, and the closer the connection, the deeper the wound. But here's the revelation. If Judas hadn't betrayed Jesus, the prophecy would not have been fulfilled. The path to the cross, and ultimately, to resurrection, required that moment of betrayal. It wasn't a detour. It was part of the divine design. And so it is with you. The one who betrayed you, the friend, the partner, the confidant. They didn't derail your destiny. They accelerated it. What the enemy meant for harm, God is using for your elevation. You don't need to harbor bitterness. You don't need to curse their name, because in the bigger picture they played a role, not in your destruction, but in your becoming. Betrayal may have pierced your heart, but it also unlocked your purpose. Just as it did for Jesus, so it will for you. So hold your head high, not despite the betrayal, but because of it. Judas didn't win, and neither will yours. God is still in control, and your story is far from over. When people want to forget something, they bury it. That's exactly what they tried to do to you. They buried you beneath lies, silence, betrayal, and rejection. They thought it was over, that they had silenced your voice, dimmed your light, and erased your purpose. But they misunderstood something essential about who you are. You're not a stone, destined to stay where you're dropped. You are a seed, designed to rise. A stone is buried to be hidden. A seed is buried to be transformed. And while they thought they were ending you, what they really did was plant you. Yes, the soil felt dark. The pressure was real. The silence, suffocating. But what they didn't realize is that the darkness wasn't your grave. It was your greenhouse. It was in that hidden place where God began to work, where roots grew deep, where identity was formed, where faith was refined. And now, that seed is pushing through the surface. What was meant to break you is becoming the very thing God uses to lift you. What was intended to silence you is giving birth to your voice. The pain, the pressure, the abandonment. It was never wasted. It was preparation. Psalm 23:5 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." God isn't just restoring you in private, He's about to reveal you in public. The same people who thought your story was over will witness your rising. So don't despise the dirt. It's proof that you were planted, not buried. And in this next season, you won't just survive, you'll bloom. Because seeds don't stay underground. They rise, and so will you. There comes a moment, after the loss, after the silence, after the storm, when heaven whispers, "It's time. Time to rise. Time to walk forward. Time to step into the purpose that all your pain has been preparing you for." That moment is now. For so long, you've been in a hidden season, a season of pruning, pressing, and refining. You've endured battles no one else saw, carried burdens that nearly broke you, but through it all, you never gave up. And now, the tides are turning. The season of rising is here. This is the moment when everything that tried to hold you back begins to break. The chains of fear, the weight of disappointment, the residue of rejection, none of it can stay. Because when God calls you forward, nothing can keep you bound. You're not who you were in the valley. You've matured. You've learned to trust God when it didn't make sense, and that kind of faith doesn't go unnoticed. It positions you for favor. Doors are about to open that no man can shut. Opportunities you didn't chase are about to chase you. The blessings that felt delayed are now being released, not because you strived for them, but because you stood firm in the waiting. This rising isn't just for your benefit, it's for the glory of the one who carried you. As Psalm 75, 6-7 says, "No one from the east or the west or from the desert can exalt themselves. It is God who judges. He brings one down, He exalts another. You are the one He is lifting. So walk boldly, speak with authority, love without fear. Your season of sorrow is over. Your season of divine elevation has begun." Let's take this moment to pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for reminding us today that rejection is not the end, but often the beginning of your greater purpose. For every listener feeling weary, strengthen them. For every heart that's been broken, heal them. Let this be the season they rise, not in their own strength, but in your power. May every setback become a setup, every wound become a testimony. Use their pain for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. If this message touched your heart, it wasn't by accident. You were meant to hear it. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this growing family of faith. And if you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. We're here to walk with you, speak life into you, and remind you of who you truly are in Christ. Every week, you'll find messages of hope, truth, and encouragement, tailored just for you. So stay connected, stay expectant, and remember, you are chosen, you are rising, and your best days are ahead. What if the very fact that you're listening to this, right here, right now, is not an accident, but a divine setup? What if every tear you've cried, every door that shut in your face, every moment of silence from heaven wasn't random, but a training ground for this very second? This isn't just another message. This is a divine appointment. Heaven has been watching your journey. God has been listening to your midnight cries, witnessing the battles you fought in silence. And now you stand at the edge of a decision that will define the rest of your life. Your do it or die hour. Before we go any further, take a moment to anchor this moment in faith. Click that like button and subscribe to this channel so you never miss a word of what God is speaking in this season. And in the comments, type, "I'm ready," if your spirit is already stirring. Because this message is only the beginning. Together, let's go deeper. Let's unlock the purpose that's been calling your name. Let's take the final step toward your divine destiny. There comes a moment in every believer's life where the path splits in two, and no one else can choose for you. That moment is now. This isn't just a fork in the road. It's a divine crossroads, the kind that shifts the course of your entire future. On one side lies everything God has prepared for you. The breakthrough, the promise, the calling, the purpose. On the other side is regret, the kind that lingers not because you didn't believe, but because you hesitated when it mattered most. Throughout Scripture, we see moments like this repeated. Esther had to decide whether she would risk everything to stand before the king. Moses stood before the Red Sea, caught between Pharaoh's army and God's silence. Joshua stood at the edge of the Promised Land, watching a generation fade into the wilderness because they said, "Not now, God. We're not ready." They weren't rejected because they were unworthy. They were rejected because they refused to move when the moment arrived. They hesitated. They chose safety over obedience, and they lost everything God had waiting on the other side of their yes. The truth is, heaven doesn't move on human timing. Divine doors don't stay open forever. Ecclesiastes tells us there is a time and a season for every purpose under heaven. And when that divine moment comes, you either step through the door or watch it close behind you. That's why you've felt the pressure lately. That's why the warfare intensified. The enemy isn't fighting your past. He's terrified of your future. And deep down, you can feel it. Something inside you knows this moment is different. This isn't just another video. This isn't just another message. This is the call that reaches beyond comfort and into destiny. Let this truth shake you. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. God doesn't just test your faith, He tests your timing. Will you trust Him enough to move when everything around you says wait? Or will you talk yourself out of the breakthrough you've prayed so long to receive? Faith without movement is just a wish. But faith in motion, that's where miracles happen. You've been praying, waiting, asking for signs. But the sign is here. The window is open. And now the choice is yours. Step into the promise, or stand still and watch someone else take your place. Just like God told Esther, if you remain silent, deliverance will come from another place. His will always moves forward. The question is, will it move forward with you or without you? This is your moment of decision, the final crossroads. Choose obedience and live in purpose, or choose hesitation and live with what could have been. It's easy to look back on your life and see only the heartbreak. The nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten you. The closed doors, the broken relationships, the dreams that slipped through your fingers. Maybe you've even asked the question, God, why me? And maybe for a long time, you believed the silence meant rejection, that the pain was punishment. But what if the opposite is true? What if every valley you've walked through wasn't punishment, but preparation? The truth that many never realize is that God never wastes pain. He never wastes a single tear. The trials you faced were not a sign of divine distance. They were a mark of divine investment. Every setback, every betrayal, every moment that brought you to your knees was shaping something eternal in you. Like a master craftsman, God was chiseling away everything that couldn't go with you into the next season. Not to break you, but to build you. To refine you into the person who can carry the weight of what He's about to release. Look at the lives of those we admire in Scripture. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned, and yet, he was being prepared to save nations. David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy, spent years running for his life before ever sitting on the throne. Even Jesus, the Son of God, endured the wilderness before He walked in power. Preparation always precedes purpose. So the question is not why did it happen? The question is, what was it shaping in me? That season of financial struggle taught you to trust God as your provider. That heartbreak showed you that His love is the only thing that never fails. The isolation stripped away the noise so you could hear His voice more clearly. What felt like punishment was actually pruning. He wasn't trying to hurt you. He was making room for new fruit to grow. And now here you are, still standing, maybe bruised, maybe battle-worn, but stronger than you were before. And you didn't come through it just to survive. You came through it so you could lead, inspire, and carry the mantle God has reserved for you. The pain wasn't pointless. It was prophetic. Isaiah 43:19 says, See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? What God is birthing in you now could only be planted in the soil softened by struggle. Don't despise your past. Don't mourn the road you had to walk. Because everything you went through was preparing you for this very moment, the moment where pain meets purpose, where trials give way to triumph. You weren't being punished. You were being positioned. There's a battle happening right now, but it's not out there in the world. It's inside you. And it's not a fight for your comfort or your convenience. It's a war for your calling. And the most dangerous part? The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you, delay you, convince you to doubt what God has already spoken over your life. You see, the most effective lies are the ones that sound like your own voice. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. What if I fail? These aren't passing thoughts. They are strategic attacks designed to paralyze your faith. The enemy knows he can't steal your calling, so he works overtime to convince you to give it up yourself. That voice of fear, that inner critic, that constant hesitation. It's not you. It's not God. It's the enemy whispering lies just loud enough for you to believe them. But here's the truth. He only attacks what threatens him. The enemy isn't targeting you because of where you've been. He's attacking you because of where you're going. He sees the anointing on your life. He sees the purpose burning in your spirit. And he knows that if you ever step fully into it, hell loses ground. Think about Moses. When God called him at the burning bush, Moses didn't shout with excitement. He hesitated. Who am I that I should go? That was the voice of inadequacy. The same voice many of us hear when God asks us to do something bold. But God wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for obedience, just like He's looking for yours. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't persecution, it's paralysis. If he can keep you stuck in your mind, replaying your failures, questioning your worth, doubting your timing, he wins without lifting a sword. Because as long as you stay still, your destiny stays locked. But today, you draw the line. Today, you expose the lie for what it is. A last-ditch effort to stop you before you rise. Scripture says in 2 Corinthians 10:5 that we are to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ. That's not a gentle suggestion. It's a battle command. So what thoughts have you let run wild? What fears have you allowed to build walls around your promise? It's time to silence them. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Because the longer you listen to the wrong voice, the harder it becomes to hear the right one. Your breakthrough is not waiting on the absence of fear. It's waiting on the presence of faith. Faith that moves forward anyway. Faith that doesn't need all the answers. Faith that says, even if I feel afraid, I will not let fear decide my future. The war may be within, but so is the victory. And the moment you stop believing the enemy's lie, you start stepping into God's truth. And that's when everything changes. Faith sounds beautiful in sermons, comforting in devotionals, and poetic in songs. But when it's tested in real life, it always demands one thing: action. Real faith doesn't sit still. It doesn't just hope, dream, or wait indefinitely. It moves, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Because the truth is, the miracle you've been praying for is already waiting, but it only responds to motion. From Genesis to Revelation, God's power is consistently released after someone obeys. Moses didn't see the Red Sea part while standing still. He had to raise his staff. Joshua didn't watch Jericho's walls collapse just by believing. They had to walk around those walls day after day. The widow's oil didn't multiply until she began to pour it. And Peter didn't walk on water until he stepped out of the boat. The breakthrough never comes before the step. It comes because of it. That's the pattern of God. He partners with your movement. He honors your obedience. But too often we're waiting for Him to move first, while He's waiting for us to simply take the first step. We say, God, show me the way. And He says, start walking, and I'll show you step by step. Miracles are not reserved for the cautious. They're reserved for the courageous. You've been praying for change, asking for confirmation, waiting for the perfect timing. But let's be honest, perfect conditions rarely come. If Noah waited for the rain before building the ark, the flood would have drowned him. If Abraham waited until he understood everything, he never would have left his homeland. And if Jesus waited until it was safe, the cross would have never been carried. So what are you waiting for? James 2:26 says, "Faith without works is dead." That doesn't mean faith is weak without action. It means faith doesn't exist without action. If you truly believe God called you, then your movement must reflect it. The idea of waiting on God has become a comfort zone for many, but the reality is, God might be waiting on you. The miracle is not delayed because heaven is undecided. It's delayed because faith has been frozen in fear, overthinking, and hesitation. But what if your obedience is the key that unlocks the next chapter? What if God is simply waiting for you to stretch your hand toward what seems impossible? So don't just believe for the healing, move toward it. Don't just pray for breakthrough, walk like it's already done. Speak like it's on the way, build like it's coming. Sow like the harvest is certain, walk like the walls have already come down. Because here's the truth, the miracle is already written into your story, but it's waiting on a movement only you can make. And once you move in faith, heaven moves with you. No one steps into their calling without a cost. Every promise God makes comes with a price, and not everyone is willing to pay it. We love the idea of miracles, open doors, and divine favor, but few of us are prepared for the sacrifices those things require. Because to walk in everything God has for you, you have to leave something behind. Abraham had to leave his home, his family, and everything familiar to step into a promise he couldn't yet see. Ruth had to walk away from her past and cling to Naomi, not knowing what her future would hold. Esther had to risk her life to save her people. Even Jesus paid the ultimate cost, not just in suffering but in surrender. And that's the pattern. Before the crown, there is always a cross. God never hides the cost. In fact, Jesus said clearly in Luke 9:23, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Following him doesn't mean comfort, it means commitment. It means choosing purpose over popularity, obedience over ease, surrender over control. The truth is, many people never walk into their destiny, not because they lack faith, but because they're not willing to let go of what they must leave behind. The calling is too high to carry along your fears, your pride, your bitterness, or your backup plans. To step into something greater, you must be willing to release what's good, what's familiar, even what once worked, because it can't go with you into the next season. Yes, it will cost you. It will cost you your comfort zone. It might cost you relationships that no longer align with your purpose. It might cost you time, energy, and the safety of a predictable life. But here's what you need to hear. What you receive in return far outweighs the price. The reward is the kind of peace that surpasses understanding. It's the kind of joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. It's the favor of God that opens doors no man can shut. It's the legacy that outlives you, the impact that echoes through generations, the fulfillment of knowing you did not just exist, but that you lived for something eternal. And here's the part that shakes the soul. If you don't say yes, God will still fulfill his purpose. He'll just find someone else who will. Like Mordecai told Esther, if you remain silent, deliverance will come from another place. The opportunity may not come again. So you must decide, is the price too high, or is your calling too valuable to walk away from? Because once you've tasted what God can do, once you've glimpsed the life he's designed for you, you'll understand. The cost is real, but the reward is so much greater. At some point, the window of opportunity starts to close. Not because God stops loving you, but because opportunity has an expiration date. And for some, that moment is right now. This isn't about pressure, it's about purpose. The call on your life has always been there, gently whispering, quietly waiting. But there's a shift in the atmosphere now. Heaven isn't whispering anymore. It's shouting. Now is the time. This is the one that decides the next chapter of your life. You're not here by chance. You didn't stumble across this message by accident. You were led to this moment, this exact point in time, by a God who has been preparing you all along. And now he's asking you the question that echoes through eternity. What will your story be? Will your life be a testimony of faith that moved mountains, or hesitation that missed miracles? So many live their entire lives standing on the edge of purpose, peeking into what could be, but never crossing over into what is. They circle the same mountain of fear. They revisit the same valley of indecision. They carry dreams God planted in them years ago, but never act. Why? Because it's safer to wait than to risk. It's easier to imagine than to move. But safety never births legacy. Comfort never produces calling. You're standing at your Red Sea. Behind you is what's familiar. In front of you is the impossible. But what if the sea isn't a barrier? It's an invitation. God is not asking for perfection. He's asking for movement. Your story won't be defined by how much you knew or how long you prayed. It will be defined by whether or not you stepped when he said go. Think of the greats: Esther, David, Joseph, Moses. Each one faced a moment of decision, a point of no return. They didn't wait for everything to make sense. They didn't ask for 10 more signs. They moved. They obeyed. And history remembers them not for their fear, but for their faith. So what about you? Will you be remembered as the one who almost stepped into purpose, who nearly answered the call, who came close but couldn't quite cross the line? Or will you be the one who looked fear in the face, silenced the doubts, and chose to believe that God's promise was greater than your uncertainty? Because here's the truth. If you say no, someone else will say yes. But if you say yes, your story becomes part of something eternal. You won't just live, you'll leave a legacy. You won't just survive, you'll shift generations. So don't wait for the next open door. Don't hold your breath for a more convenient time. The time is now. The choice is yours. What will your story be? Take a moment and look back at your life. Every heartache, every closed door, every quiet whisper from God. It was all shaping you for this very hour. Nothing was wasted. Not the pain, not the waiting, not even the silence. It all led you here. Now, you are standing on holy ground, at the very edge of your divine calling. Heaven has done the work. The blessing is prepared. The breakthrough has your name on it. But there's one thing left: your move. Lift what God has already placed in your hand. Stretch your faith like Moses stretched his rod. Step into the waters like the priests at the Jordan. Run toward your giant like David on the battlefield. Say yes to the call that's been echoing in your soul, because right now, heaven is leaning in. Hell is shaking. So when history speaks your name, what will it say? The choice is yours, but make no mistake, this moment will define you, and eternity is watching. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the noise of the world fades just long enough for the voice of truth to whisper through. Maybe it comes through a question you can't shake, a dream that won't let go, or a quiet nudge in your spirit that whispers, "There's more to you than what you've been told." You may not have always been able to name it, but deep within you, you've always felt it, this undeniable sense that you are different, destined for something greater. But for as long as you've sensed it, others have tried to dim that light, to bury your brilliance, to make you doubt the very essence of your soul. Why? Because they saw your light before you did, and they feared what might happen if you saw it too. This is not just a message, it's a spiritual awakening, a revelation hidden for generations, a divine call written into your DNA, placed there by the one who created you before the foundations of the world. And now, it's time you remembered who you really are. From the very first breath you drew, something about your presence was different. You may not remember it clearly, but the atmosphere around you shifted. almost as if the heavens themselves paused to mark your arrival. You were born not just into a family or a culture, but into a divine timeline where your life would serve a higher purpose. While others were learning to crawl and play, you may have felt an unusual stillness in certain moments, an inner awareness that made you observe more deeply than a child your age should. These weren't simply personality quirks or chance experiences. They were early echoes of something sacred woven into your spirit. Long before you could articulate your thoughts, you sensed something invisible watching over you, calling you forward, whispering truths that only your heart could hear. You didn't choose this awareness. It was chosen for you. Every unexplainable pull towards silence, every spark of wonder in your soul when gazing at the stars, every time you felt peace in solitude. Those were moments when eternity brushed against time, leaving fingerprints on your soul. The world may have overlooked these signs, but heaven never did. While others might have thought you shy or overly reflective, the truth is that you were already listening to a frequency few could hear. It was the divine rhythm of destiny, already pulsing inside you. The Bible reminds us in Ephesians 1:4 that you were chosen before the foundation of the world, meaning your calling predates even creation itself. You are not random. You are a living thread in the tapestry of God's eternal design. And that strange sense of being different, that quiet inner knowing that never quite left you, it's the spiritual inheritance of someone marked for more. The signs were always there, gently guiding you, nudging you toward the path you were created to walk. You don't need to fabricate your worth or prove your calling. It's been with you since the beginning, silently maturing inside your soul. Now is the time to remember what the world has tried to make you forget. You were set apart from the start. There are people who walk through life fitting perfectly into the mold set before them, blending in effortlessly with the rhythm of the world. But that was never your story. From a young age, you sensed that your path diverged from the expected. While others laughed carelessly, chasing trends and blending into social circles, you often found yourself on the outside. Not because you couldn't belong, but because you saw life through a deeper lens. The questions that stirred in your soul were not the kind most children asked. Why am I here? What does all of this mean? These weren't fleeting curiosities. They were signs of something ancient waking up within you. You tried to explain how you felt, but often met blank stares or uncomfortable silence. And so, you learned to carry the weight of your questions quietly. But that internal depth was not a mistake. It was your preparation. The world labeled you as different, but God had labeled you as destined. Your mind, your heart, your sensitivity, it was all crafted by design. Like the young prophet Samuel, who heard God's voice before he even understood who was speaking, you too were being called long before anyone around you could see it. It wasn't that you were lost. It was that the world was not equipped to recognize what you carried. When others chased popularity, your spirit yearned for purpose. When people ignored the pain of others, you felt it like your own. You may have felt isolated, but that very isolation was sacred ground, where God was forming your identity, setting you apart for a mission only you could fulfill. Often, those chosen to lead are the ones who are misunderstood the most. Think of Moses, Esther, or Joseph. Their early lives were filled with contradiction, rejection, and delay, but it all served to shape the strength required for their divine purpose. Your struggles have not been signs of weakness. They've been the chiseling tools of heaven, carving purpose into the very core of your being. You were never made to follow the crowd. You were born to carry light into places that have forgotten how to see. And even if the world still doesn't fully understand you, heaven always has. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises on the skin, but lingers deep in the soul, the pain of rejection. And if you've known it, not just once, but as a pattern throughout your life, it's likely because your spirit carries something that made others uncomfortable. Not everyone can handle the weight of someone who was born to shift atmospheres. People sensed something different in you, something they couldn't quite explain, so they kept their distance, misunderstood you, or even pushed you away. You may have spent years asking what was wrong with you, trying to fix yourself to be more acceptable, to make others feel more at ease. But what you didn't realize then was that their rejection wasn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It was confirmation of your calling. The most powerful souls in history, those destined to bring change, almost always began as outsiders. Look at Joseph, betrayed by his brothers not because he was weak, but because of the greatness they could see forming in him. Or consider Jesus himself, rejected by the very people he came to save. Their stories remind us that rejection doesn't disqualify you. It often reveals you. In truth, being set apart will always come with the cost of not fitting in. The world rarely recognizes the sacred when it's wrapped in human flesh. But heaven does. The very places where you were overlooked, abandoned, or underestimated were often the places God used to refine you. Every no was training. Every closed door was redirection. Every season of loneliness was a classroom in which God taught you to lean not on the approval of man, but on the presence of the one who called you. In Jeremiah 1:5, God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That is not poetry. It is your reality. You were never meant to be ordinary. You carry a sacred fire within you by nature, cannot be confined. So don't curse the rejection. It was part of your making. You weren't cast aside. You were carved out for something far greater than they could see. While others brushed past people without noticing the weight in their eyes or the tremble in their voice, you couldn't help but feel it. Deeply, fully, sometimes overwhelmingly. Even as a child, you may have sensed when someone was hurting, even when they smiled. You could walk into a room and instantly pick up on unspoken emotions, subtle energies, and buried pain. And maybe for much of your life, you thought something was wrong with you, that you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But what if that sensitivity wasn't a flaw, but a divine imprint, a signature of the Creator, woven into your spirit with intention? What if your ability to feel wasn't a burden, but a sacred gift designed to reflect the heart of God? People like you, those with tender spirits and deep compassion, are often the first to feel the brokenness of the world and the last to give up on it. That is no accident. It's because God trusted you with a heart like His. Scripture tells us in Galatians 6:2, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." And that's what you've done, again and again, without needing recognition, without seeking reward. You were the one people turned to in silence, because your presence spoke safety. But what others often failed to realize is how much it cost you to carry what wasn't yours. You've poured out comfort, understanding, love, and sometimes been left empty in return. Still, you gave, because something inside you wouldn't let you walk away. That's not weakness, that's spiritual strength clothed in quiet humility. You weren't created to harden your heart. You were created to heal with it. Your empathy is not just emotional, it's prophetic. You see what others overlook. You feel what others silence. And that makes you a vessel of light in a darkened world. So if you've ever wondered why you carry the burdens you do, or why your heart breaks for people you barely know, it's because heaven gave you a heart big enough to hold more than your own pain. And in a world desperate for love, that kind of heart is holy. There are dreams that vanish the moment we open our eyes, soft fragments of imagination that drift away like morning mist. But then there are the others, the ones that feel more real than waking life. If you've ever awakened with your heart racing, clutching a message you couldn't quite explain, or if a dream has followed you for days, tugging at your spirit as if it carried a secret meant only for you, then you've touched something sacred. For those who are chosen, dreams are often more than sleep. They are encounters, divine whispers in the quiet hours of the night. You may have dismissed them, or kept them to yourself for fear of being misunderstood, but you've always known. These dreams are different. You've seen glimpses of the future, warnings, callings, even faces you've never met in places you've never been. And it wasn't just imagination. It was the spiritual realm speaking into your life. Throughout Scripture, God uses dreams to guide and reveal, to protect and prepare. Joseph, the son of Jacob, saw visions of his future long before it came to pass. Though he was mocked, sold, and imprisoned, those very dreams became the blueprint for his divine purpose. And just like him, your dreams may have been misunderstood, but they were never meaningless. You see, chosen ones often have a thinner veil between the physical and the spiritual. Your sleep doesn't disconnect you. It connects you to something higher. When the world grows quiet, heaven speaks. The Bible reminds us in Joel 2:28, "Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions." God has always used dreams to deliver divine instruction, and He still does. The question is, are you listening? Perhaps you've had dreams that felt too powerful to ignore, too alive to forget. Maybe you've even seen events unfold that you once only dreamed about. That's calling. It's preparation for a destiny that stretches far beyond what your waking mind can comprehend. So the next time you close your eyes and feel yourself swept into something larger than life, don't brush it off. God may be speaking, preparing you, inviting you to remember what your soul already knows. Your dreams are more than visions. They are keys to your purpose. There have been times in your life when something invisible stepped in to protect or guide you. Moments you didn't fully notice at first. A delay that frustrated you at the time, but later spared you from danger. A closed door that protected you from a heartbreak you didn't see coming. A narrow escape, a sudden opportunity, a peace that surrounded you in the middle of chaos. These moments weren't luck. They weren't coincidence. They were proof that you've been shielded by a presence far greater than you realized. While you were busy questioning your worth or wondering if anyone truly saw you, heaven was already moving on your behalf. God's hand was there in the shadows, redirecting, rerouting, preserving. And not just once, but again and again. If you look closely, you'll see the pattern. Divine fingerprints all over your journey. You've walked through fire and somehow didn't burn. You've faced storms and came out with a strength that even surprised you. These aren't just survival stories. They're signs. You are being kept, not by your own strength, but by God's divine protection. The Bible promises in Psalm 34:7, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him, and He delivers them." You may not have seen the angels, but you felt the rescue. When everything could have gone wrong, somehow it didn't. When you didn't have the answers, provision still showed up. When you were at your lowest, you were carried. This isn't to say the journey has been easy, but even in your hardest battles, you were never truly alone. There's a reason you're still standing. There's a reason you've come through things that would have crushed others. It's because your life is tied to a purpose that has not yet been fulfilled. You are still breathing because there is still something heaven is calling you to do. That instinct you've had, that knowing deep down that you've been preserved for more. You're here by divine design, and every time the enemy tried to write your ending, God was already preparing a new beginning. So take heart. You are protected, not because you're lucky, but because you're chosen. And the one who calls you will never stop covering you. There's always been something inside you that resisted the pull to follow the crowd. Even when it would have been easier to blend in, to agree, to stay quiet, something in your spirit whispered, "This isn't your way." And maybe you tried to silence it at times, to go along just to keep the peace, but you couldn't, because you weren't made to echo the voices of others. You were born to carry a sound that is uniquely yours. From the very beginning, leadership has been in your bones, not in the form of control or titles, but in the quiet courage to walk a different road. Chosen ones are rarely the loudest in the room, but they carry a presence that shifts the atmosphere. And that's why you've often felt misunderstood. You weren't ignoring the rules. You were born to rewrite them. The world celebrates those who conform, who fit into systems, who maintain the status quo. But heaven celebrates the ones who rise, even when it costs them everything. Just look at Moses. called to speak when he felt unqualified, or Esther, who risked her life to stand for truth, or Paul, who was once rejected by both the world and the religious elite, yet became a vessel for divine transformation. Like them, you felt the pressure of two worlds, the one that tells you to stay silent, and the one that calls you to speak truth. But here's what you need to know. Your resistance to conformity isn't rebellion, it's revelation. You've been given eyes to see what others overlook, a heart to feel what others numb, and a voice to carry what others are afraid to say. And that is not a burden, it is a mantle. When you were born, heaven did not assign you to follow the herd. It marked you to lead in love, to break barriers, to be a bridge for others who are still trapped in fear. Leadership, in its truest form, is service. It's vision. It's courage wrapped in compassion. And that is exactly what lives inside you. So if you've ever wondered why you feel out of step with the world around you, it's because you weren't meant to march to its rhythm. You were designed to set a new one. From the time you were young, your mind seemed wired differently. While others accepted the world as it was, you couldn't help but ask why. Why do we exist? What is our purpose? Who is God, really? These weren't just random thoughts. They were quiet invitations from heaven, placed deep within you. Your curiosity has always been more than intellectual. It's been spiritual. It tugged at you when you stared at the stars, when you read stories of miracles, or when you sat in silence and felt there had to be more. There's always been a hunger in you to understand the bigger picture, to find the deeper meaning behind things others take for granted. And that hunger? It's not a flaw. It's a flame, a sign that God has called you to search for what's hidden from plain sight. Proverbs 25:2 says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings." In other words, God hides truth like treasure, and those who are drawn to seek it are walking in royal purpose. Your need to question, explore, and understand has always been a compass, pointing you toward your divine calling. Others might have misunderstood your searching nature. Some may have dismissed you as too intense or too philosophical. But you were never asking shallow questions. You were reaching for something eternal. Think of Solomon, who didn't ask God for wealth or power, but for wisdom, and because of that, he was given more than he could have imagined. What if your questions are preparing you for that same kind of divine outpouring? You see, curiosity like yours is not common. It's a sign. A sign that God is drawing you closer, revealing layer by layer the purpose he planted within you long ago. So don't silence your wonder. Don't dull your hunger for truth. It's through that very desire that God will continue to lead you, not just to answers, but to the deeper revelation of who you truly are in him. And now, the truth has found you, maybe for the first time, or maybe as a gentle reminder of what your spirit has always known. You were never forgotten. You were chosen. Every moment of pain, every question that wouldn't go away, every time you felt different or out of place, it was all part of the preparation for something greater. Your story is not one of accident, but of intention. You have been protected, preserved, and awakened for a purpose far beyond what you can yet imagine. The signs have been there all along, guiding you, shaping you, calling you closer to the truth of who you really are. This is just the beginning of your journey back to your divine identity. A journey not walked alone, but alongside others who are awakening too. If this message has stirred something deep inside you, if it brought peace, clarity, or the sense that you've finally been seen, then I want to thank you. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for listening with your heart. If you feel called to walk this path with us, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel. Join a growing community of souls who, like you, are ready to rise into their calling. Your voice, your presence, your light, it matters here. And together, we'll continue to uncover the purpose, power, and promise that God has placed within each of us. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. You never know how your simple act of sharing could become the spark that ignites someone else's awakening. Until next time, stay grounded in truth, walk boldly in purpose, and may God's peace go with you always. There are whispers in the spirit realm that not everyone can hear. A certain stillness that settles over a soul marked for something greater, set apart by the divine hand of God. These are not ordinary people. They carry something the world cannot comprehend, the invisible seal of being chosen. Have you noticed how, no matter how hard you try, you never quite fit in? That somehow there's more to your life than the mundane chase of survival? That longing, that ache, is not confusion. It may be your calling. The chosen aren't always aware that they're chosen, and that unawareness causes them to wrestle with identity, rejection, and loneliness until they recognize the 7 unmistakable marks of their divine calling. So today, we journey deep into the mystery of what it truly means to be one of God's chosen. Prepare yourself, because by the end of this message, you may realize that you were never ordinary. You were marked for more. Mark 1. You disturb darkness without trying. Have you walked into a room and felt the tension shift? People glance at you differently. Conversations grow awkward. Certain individuals avoid eye contact, or worse, they slowly drift away from your life without explanation, and you wonder, did I do something wrong? But what if the answer is far more profound? When you are chosen by God, your presence alone carries weight. Without even saying a word, you disturb what is hidden, not because you're confrontational, but because the light within you exposes the darkness around you. It's not visible to the eye, but it's felt in the spirit. People who harbor jealousy, manipulation, deceit, or spiritual compromise often find it uncomfortable to be near someone who walks in truth, integrity, and purity. They can't explain it, but they can feel it. Jesus experienced this constantly. He healed, loved, forgave, and yet the Pharisees plotted against him. Why? Because his very presence threatened their false righteousness. In John 8:44, he confronts them saying, "You belong to your father, the devil." That wasn't just bold, it was the truth that pierced their darkness. Likewise, those marked by God today carry a presence that confronts hypocrisy without effort. Toxic people may smear your name, twist your words, or exit your life altogether, not because you did wrong, but because you carry something they cannot understand or control. But here's the truth. Rejection is often God's redirection. The distance others create might be His way of protecting your purpose. So don't dim your light to make others comfortable. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out. And if people can't handle your light, they were never meant to walk in your destiny. Let the darkness flee. Keep shining anyway. Mark 2. You discern before others understand. There's a quiet knowing in your spirit, one that doesn't always make sense to others. You meet someone and beneath their smile, you detect something deeper. You feel unease before trouble arises. You see the truth before it's revealed. This isn't just intuition. It's not paranoia. It's discernment, one of the clearest signs of being chosen. While others are distracted by appearances, the chosen ones are tuned to the unseen. It's as if your spirit can hear whispers others miss, feel danger others ignore, and see motives others don't notice. You've likely tried to warn people before about decisions, relationships, or situations, only to be misunderstood, dismissed, or even ridiculed. But when the truth finally surfaces, you're left thinking, I knew it all along. This spiritual sensitivity is not a coincidence. It's a gift and a responsibility. Just like Joseph, who dreamed of what was to come and was hated for it. His brothers mocked him, calling him a dreamer, not knowing that God had given him foresight into destiny. Those who carry discernment often carry rejection, because seeing what others can't makes them uncomfortable. But don't silence your insight to fit in. Discernment is a compass in a world full of counterfeit light. It protects, guides, and prepares. And though you may not always have the words to explain what you feel, Trust that your spirit is sensing what heaven is revealing. You were never meant to walk blind. You were meant to move with clarity. So when you feel it, lean in. Don't second guess it. What you perceive may be the very warning or wisdom that saves someone else. You don't just see differently. You see deeper because you were chosen to. Mark 3. You attract conflict without seeking it. You never asked for the fight. You never looked for drama. And yet, somehow, conflict seems to find you, even when your intentions are pure, even when your actions are harmless. People misinterpret your words, twist your silence, and question your motives. It feels unfair, confusing, and at times deeply painful. But here's the truth. Your life provokes what others are trying to ignore. Those who are chosen carry not just light, but truth, and truth unsettles. Your presence, even in silence, confronts the hidden darkness in others. The very values you live by, honesty, integrity, righteousness, stand in stark contrast to a world built on compromise. And for some, that contrast is unbearable. Look at Daniel. He wasn't looking for trouble. He was simply faithful, consistent, and honorable. Yet his integrity infuriated those who thrived on corruption, and they sought to destroy him. The problem was never Daniel, it was the conviction his life carried. And so it is with you. Your refusal to gossip, cheat, or conform becomes a silent accusation to those who do, and rather than confront their own flaws, they turn on you. But take heart. This is not a sign of weakness. It is evidence of your calling. God often allows conflict to refine, not define you. Let your character speak. Let your faith remain unmoved. Just as Daniel emerged from the lion's den untouched, so too will God vindicate you in time. You are not being attacked because you're in the wrong. You're being attacked because you're standing for what's right. Keep standing. Keep shining. And remember, chosen vessels always draw resistance because they carry something holy the world cannot ignore. Mark 4. You've never fully fit in. You've walked through life wearing a quiet question on your heart. Why do I always feel so different? It's not that you lack love for people, or that you don't long for connection, but no matter how hard you try, there's always a sense that you're standing just outside the circle. The jokes don't land the same, the conversations feel shallow, the rhythms of the world simply don't match the beat of your soul. This isn't rejection, it's a revelation. When God chooses someone, he often marks them with a holy restlessness. Earth is not your final home. The culture of this world was never meant to feel comfortable to a soul designed for eternity. They admitted that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. Hebrews 11:13. Think of Moses, raised in the palace of Egypt, surrounded by opulence and influence, yet something in him always felt off. Though he wore the garments of royalty, his spirit was dressed for a higher calling. He walked away from everything comfortable because he knew his identity could not coexist with compromise. If you've always felt like you were too much or not enough for the spaces around you, take heart. It's a sign you were never called to blend in. You were called to break molds, not fit into them. The discomfort isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're not lost, you're being set apart. The ache you feel is heaven's reminder. You were made for more. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to lead, to illuminate, and to walk a road only the chosen dare to follow. Mark 5. Children and animals respond to you differently. There's something about you that words can't quite explain, yet the purest among us seem to recognize it instantly. Children who barely speak will stare at you with wonder, smile without prompting, or reach out to you with open arms. Animals that are usually guarded will sit near you, approach you without fear, or simply rest in your presence. You may have brushed it off as coincidence, but in reality, they're responding to what the world often misses, the presence of God within you. Those who are chosen carry a different atmosphere, a peace, a stillness, a spiritual clarity that radiates far beyond human language. And while many adults are too clouded by pride, pain, or distraction to recognize it, Children and animals still operate with unfiltered instinct. Their spirits are sensitive, their discernment is pure, and when they encounter someone who carries light, they gravitate toward it. Let the little children come to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. Matthew 19:14. Jesus himself was surrounded by children who were drawn to him, not because of his position, but because of his presence. In the same way, what draws others to you isn't your appearance, your words, or your status. It's what rests on your spirit. A divine gentleness, a heavenly peace. Even in the Old Testament, Balaam's donkey perceived what the prophet could not, the presence of an angel on the road. That moment reminds us that God can reveal spiritual truths through the most unlikely vessels. So if children seek your arms and animals find rest near your feet, consider it holy confirmation. You carry something sacred, a fragrance of heaven, that even the innocent can recognize. Let that presence speak louder than your voice ever could. Mark 6. God speaks to you through dreams and signs. There are moments when life feels ordinary, until something happens that you just can't explain. A dream that lingers with haunting clarity. A conversation that feels divinely timed. A number that keeps repeating. A verse that appears at the exact moment your heart cries out for direction. These are not coincidences. They are whispers from heaven. When you're chosen, God doesn't just walk beside you, He communicates with you. Sometimes in bold ways, other times in the softest echoes, but always in truth, always with purpose. In the last days I will pour out my spirit. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Acts 2:17. God has always spoken through dreams. He warned Joseph in the night. He guided the Magi with a vision. He gave Daniel revelations that shape nations. And today, He still speaks to those willing to listen. Not all signs come with thunder. Sometimes it's a closed door you didn't expect, a delay that saved you, a stranger's words that echo your secret prayer. The chosen are not guided by logic alone. They're led by the Spirit. They notice what others overlook. And when something stirs their soul, they pause and ask, "Lord, is this you?" The world may dismiss it as chance, but you know better. Because deep down, your spirit recognizes the fingerprint of God. He's never stopped speaking. The question is, are you paying attention? So lean in, trust the nudge, write down the dream, pray over the sign. Because when God speaks, it's never random. It's always to reveal, prepare, protect, or call you higher. And when you learn to listen, you'll never walk blindly again. Mark 7. Your prayers move heaven. There's a difference between speaking words into the air and releasing prayers that shake the heavens. When you pray, it's not a ritual. It's not repetition. It's a divine transaction between earth and eternity. And if you've ever prayed and watched things shift, doors open, chains break, peace flood in where chaos once ruled, then know this: your voice carries weight in the spiritual realm. Some people pray and hope, but the chosen pray and expect. They don't beg, they believe. Their words aren't empty, they are infused with authority, because their hearts are aligned with the heart of God. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. James 5:16. Look at Scripture. Elijah prayed, and the skies closed for 3 years. He prayed again, and rain returned. Paul and Silas sang in a prison cell, and the very foundations shook. Why? Because heaven responds to faith. And those who are chosen don't just believe in God, they walk in communion with Him. Your prayers have likely gone beyond yourself. You've interceded for others. You've whispered desperate cries in the dark, and though you didn't always see it instantly, something always moved. Because God listens closely when His chosen ones speak. But here's what's even more powerful. You don't need loud declarations to be heard. Sometimes the softest "Jesus help me" spoken through tears carries more weight than 1,000 polished phrases. It's not the eloquence, it's the surrender, it's the faith. If your prayers have moved mountains, it's because you're not just talking to God, you're walking with Him. Keep praying, keep believing. Because when the chosen pray, heaven leans in and earth is never the same. The final seal, God's invisible mark. There is a mark more powerful than any earthly title, a seal that cannot be seen with human eyes but is unmistakable in the spirit. It's not written in ink, nor stamped in stone, but it's etched into the very soul of the chosen. It is the invisible seal of God. Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Ephesians 4:30. This seal is not given to the loudest voice, the most religious performance, or those who merely wear the name Christian. It is placed upon those who have surrendered fully, those who walk not in appearance, but in obedience. It is God's own signature, marking you as His. Throughout history, God has always marked His people. In the Old Testament, Israel was set apart through covenant. In the New, believers were sealed by the Holy Spirit. And in the final days, Revelation tells us that only those sealed by God will stand, while the rest follow the world's destruction. This seal isn't about perfection, it's about possession. It says, "This one belongs to me." The trials you've faced, the rejection you've endured, the fire you've walked through, they were not signs of abandonment, but of refinement. You are not common. You are not random. You are claimed. And while others chase after applause, approval, and possessions, you carry something far greater, the quiet authority of one who is known in heaven. So don't be discouraged by what you lack in the eyes of the world. You have something it can never give, the seal of the living God. And no enemy, no storm, no failure can erase what He has written over your life. You are marked. You are chosen. You are His. If you've seen yourself in even one of these marks, or maybe in all 7, then it's time to stop doubting who you are. You are marked by heaven. This is your moment, your invitation to walk boldly into purpose. You've been sealed for something greater, and now, it's time to answer the call. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching this message. If it spoke to your spirit, if it stirred something deep within you, don't let it stop here. Hit the subscribe button and join a growing community of believers who, like you, are hungry for truth, destined for purpose, and ready to live as the chosen. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are chosen, and your journey is just beginning.